Welcome to the 9642 podcast. This is your host, Mr. Number 9.
And this is The Fool.
Hello, everyone. I hope you've all been well. We are here to review kind of a State of the Union, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so going to review what's happened over February in the world of sports. And there has been a lot happening.
Yeah.
So the traditional Northern Hemisphere winter sports ended their seasons, and by that we mean the NFL ended their season. What do you think about that idea? Like, I think the NFL wants to eventually have 40 teams and play 20 games a season.
No.
20 regular season games, and then obviously playoffs. Part of me thinks one of the reasons why the NFL is good is 16 games a season. You really can't drop points. It makes a lot of like every game feels like a semifinal, like using a rugby league term.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Like, it gets very tight as they go through, and no matter what game they're playing,
Yeah.
it always seems like it's must win. Need to get the points there because if you just drop a couple and it's done, and it's it gets very close in things.
Yeah. More games you play in a season, the more losses you can handle, and obviously you'll need bigger squads, and there's more injuries, and the players have done some very good research that if they played a 20-game season, their careers would be ending by like 3 or 4 years on average. So, they don't like it for good reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, longer games makes longer seasons. Yeah, so more games is obviously going to be harder on the athletes.
Yeah.
Especially, I know we like to make fun sometimes in the NFL, and how hard they are or not, but that is quite a lot of impact they're having. So that's wearing things down pretty quickly. And if they're having longer seasons, it's not going to be good for the players.
While the NFL has done a lot to reduce concussions, they had to be sued for billions and billions of dollars for this to happen. They didn't do it out of the goodness of their heart or anything like that. The actual hits on other body parts are hard because people are wearing armor, and there's a thing that people feel like they can put their body on the line.
Yeah.
Whereas a rugby player will be a bit more cautious about getting injured because the team can't afford to lose them, and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Though that sort of injury is also getting more common in rugby union, not necessarily so much in rugby league. But rugby union, the idea that you get hit, the harder you get hit, the more space you draw with your offload, right? And players encourage the other players to tackle them harder. Like they try to bait them into it, right? This is the game.
Yeah. Or maybe trying to get two players to come tackle you. Hard to stop the offload, and then you've got two players out of the line. And if you can get the offload off, then that's even bigger gap for whoever's running onto it.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, different sports get different sorts of injuries happen in either sport. We already know rugby has terrible mini concussions and things, long-term CTE that happen to their players.
And they haven't had the wake-up call of $1 billion lawsuit that the NFL had. I mean, it's coming slowly, but
it will come in England because it's not going to happen in New Zealand or Australia or South Africa, unfortunately.
No, they've got a case in England at the moment going, which is covering some New Zealand players, if I remember correctly. Though it's New Zealand players who played in England, but
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with that. Shantae Happy is one of those players who played rugby league and rugby union. Went to school with him. He's a bit of a, what do you call, Huddersfield Town legend, the rugby league club. Now, with all that aside, 20-game season, I don't know. I think 17 games is sure. I like the old format. I like that the Superbowl was on like the first Monday of February because it often meant we got, or the second Monday of February rather. That meant it's on Waitangi Day. We get a day off.
Yeah,
To go watch it. It's like there's so many win-wins for us.
for us,
Like
yeah.
as a Now, if they were to do something like turn that whole preseason into games instead of extending it at the end, I'm a bit more in favor. But yeah, it's gonna happen because money.
Yeah. You're right. It's going to happen because money, and yeah, I mean, from a fan perspective, them starting earlier and still finishing so that we get a public holiday to watch Super Bowl on is nice. But the same point, thinking from a player point of view, if they're going to extend the season, though preseason means more games, like preseason is a chance for them to make sure they're up to speed, make sure their fitness is there, make sure their bodies are prepared.
None of
So
the regular players go to preseason games. They go for training, but they don't play in the preseason games. They train and they do drills, and they don't even do full body drills because you can't afford to get injuries on those players. Those players don't
yeah,
count. Now, if they're playing those games now, that's a lot. That's four extra games they wouldn't like. Okay, occasional players might play. People like Tom Brady played because he's crazy.
yeah,
Aaron Rodgers played sometimes. And like because there's like this is the games you want to give your backup QB a chance to show their what they can
yeah.
do and like get some.
This one's more for the fringe players. I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
it's to give them to bed them in. Like obviously, not
Yeah,
all positions are like that. You want to give the people who you drafted that year a chance to get into the team and play. So
yeah.
they get used to the team drills. But your veteran players who are in the team and have played and they know the playbook, well, they don't need to come. They know what to do. Like
Yeah,
they should do.
yeah. I understand.
That does because the other side is the NFL gives you so much homework. You literally need to memorize,
Oh
playbooks
yeah,
and route running and all these other things
I know
when
it's
you in the
crazy.
off season. So
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to remember when you're out there playing, not just run in that direction. You say there's routes to run. They've got to run,
mm,
know which ones they're running straight, which ones they're jagging back, all those crazy things they're
yeah,
doing.
yeah, exactly. Now, speaking of the season, how much of it did you get to catch, other than obviously the game that we streamed? I know you didn't get to watch as many live games, but how many did you watch?
I didn't really watch many this season. I think I may have picked up a few highlights of a few Bills games, but that was
Yeah.
about it really.
How do you feel about the Bills season?
Uh, I'd, I mean, I'm feeling happy. We topped the AFC East.
Beat the Patriots in the playoffs like
Yeah,
so dominantly,
dominantly.
but
Looked really good.
the,
I mean, lost the Chiefs in the divisional round, but
it's the
hey, it's playing the
Patrick
Chiefs.
Mahomes.
Yeah, and we played really well. Like that was a phenomenal game, really. Like it was super interesting, super close. Like it was just the cookie crumbled the wrong way for us, but it was always nice being in such a epic game. I liked just afterwards the amount of Twitter and social media posts around, okay, just let's can the rest of the NFL. We're just going to play Chiefs Bills for a 7 game series. There we go. It sort
Yeah,
of felt like
yeah.
that. Like, yeah, this is crazy
They're
good.
two very good teams. Arguably, with the two now that Tom Brady has retired,
Yeah,
Aaron Rodgers may be looking to retire. These are the two guys we can probably see fight it over in the league. I still like Lamar Jackson a lot as well.
yeah.
He'll be there. Players like Justin Fields, and of course a certain Joe Burrow,
Yeah.
who we're going to talk about.
And Stepford also sort of spent his mark as well, saying, yeah, see, I'm actually really, really good. So it is
I
going
think
to be,
everybody always knew he was very,
yeah,
very good. He was just at a very bad team.
yeah. I know. Everybody knew he was good. So he's so good he almost make the Lions do something. Um,
Yeah.
but now he's got a good team as well, which just makes the Rams are going to be
I mean, he's now a
pretty
Hall
good.
of Fame quarterback. He's got a Super Bowl on his resume. He's
Yeah,
with all the statistics and how well he's done in a reasonably bad team. You know, there's not much you can ask. much more he can do to get in. I'm sure he's gonna. The Rams had a win now team. I don't know. It's be interesting to see how much of their players they get to keep with their cap
Yeah.
situation. But they could probably do one more run. We'll
Yeah.
see how that goes. Joe Burrow, on the other hand,
Yeah.
I feel really bad. I think he's a really, really good player. I think you agree with that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
clearly one of the top sportsmen in the world at such a young age. He's just the Bengals are not a good organization. They managed to luck into a Super Bowl, and
Yeah.
I mean that in the nicest way possible. Like literally, there was a Ravens got injured in their division, the Browns imploded, and the Steelers imploded, so they got to be the top of the AFC North. And literally every game in the playoffs, in the last minute, Joe Burrow saved their arse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like apart
The
from the game against the Chiefs, when the defense saved their arse.
yeah. Just for a
And
change. But
and
even then,
the defense played really well all through that playoffs. Like they just got hot. Like basically they were average
yeah.
throughout the regular season, and they got hot so that when the Bengals offense and defense were basically basically peaked at the right time.
Yeah.
If
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
From the
and you
second
don't
half of that
necessarily
conference final
yeah,
onwards, basically.
it's so difficult to put that together again.
Yeah.
Like this is like when New Zealand made the World Cup semifinals in '92. Like we didn't make a semifinal again till '99.
Yeah.
And then like after the '99 World Cup, we didn't make a final till 2015. It's one of those things. We still haven't won a World Cup, by the way. Like like we've won a Test World Championship, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like and that's New Zealand. There's like you remember Kenya made the World Cup semifinals in 2003. Like that was their opportunity. Like they didn't come back to the semis of the Cricket World Cup.
No.
Um, some teams just have that. I hope the Bengals aren't in that situation. I hope they do draft like linesmen to protect Joe Burrow, keep him from getting injured, and hope he gets
Yeah. Yeah.
treatment in the off season for that injury he caught in the last few minutes of the Super Bowl, but we'll see. I think
We'll
that
see.
the league also will know what he's doing and what that team can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that incredible offense is still incredible, though. I think. Well, if they let's see how they keep that defense. Um, but if they did do a MVP for the playoffs, that for me was obviously going to be Joe Burrow. He was just so good,
Yeah.
and
No, it
throughout
was
the whole
crazy.
playoffs.
It
So
was crazy, crazy good in the playoffs. What little I saw, like it's amazing how awesome he was being, and just as you say, get him some cover, some defense around him, and I think he could take
yeah,
a team very,
he
very
was
long
sacked.
distance.
He was sacked 70 times in the season.
That's
That's
crazy.
so about 24 more times than the next highest quarterback, and he's already been sacked over 100 times in his career, which is the record number for a player who's played the number of games he's played.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I just hope because this is like it's so common in the NFL where you get like a generational talent, which he is now.
Yeah.
Like he's clearly an incredible player, and they go to a bad team, the team doesn't draft the right protection for him, and they
Yeah.
retire for because they nowadays they're like, yeah, we have concussions and we're not gonna.
Yeah. Yeah. Only so many times he can get smashed before he's like, yeah, I've made some money. I'm gonna go do something safer.
Yeah, and he's actually completed his degree and everything because it's
Oh,
the
cool.
thing that happens in football is football players tend and basketball players go to college now because they have to play a year of college
Yeah.
or at least be a year out of high school before they can go to the NBA. So they tend to go to college, though the NBA is trying to set up their second league to be a finishing school
All right.
for
Yeah. Yeah.
most of their players, just because they think colleges don't do it well enough for what they need. Now they have the NFL player, like a basketball player, Like, LeBron James at 16 could play basketball in the NBA. LeBron James at 16, incredible athlete that he was never going to be able to play at the NFL. He was
Yeah.
already he was a good high school football player as well. So it's not like he couldn't have considered it, because he even considered, after winning two championships with Miami, whether he wanted to switch to playing football.
All right.
So he had thought about it.
Yeah, yeah. That could have been interesting.
That would have been an interesting. Well, yeah, he was never really gonna do it, I
No,
think.
no.
But he did. That's the thing. So a player NFL, generally they're 23, 24 when they get in. Sometimes even as old as 26, 27. From graduating high school, they've got a degree. They're probably married. They might have a kid.
Yeah.
So it's different to you're 16 and 17, and you started the NBA, and you've got you've earned your first $5 million.
Yeah, well, exactly. So yeah, add that in as well. A bit older, a bit
Mm.
wiser. You say actually have completed degrees and things. So generally, so they've got something to fall back onto as well. So I can imagine, yeah, that if they're just being injured all the time, that they may just decide that
Yeah,
it's time to leave.
like famously, the Indiana Colts had a generational talent quarterback in Andrew Luck, who had to retire because of concussions, but he has an architecture degree, so that's what he went and did.
Yeah.
Um, and Justin Herbert, who's also behind a bad O line, by the way,
Yeah.
he's got a marine biology degree. So,
All right. Yeah.
there are they're not all of them are doing there's some university degrees that are clearly designed for student athletes to have just enough credits to be able to technically get a degree to graduate. Not all players do those degrees.
Yeah. No, understand.
Mm. Now, wha- uh, so to you, what was the best game that you think? Was it that Bengals Chiefs game, or the Bills Chiefs game?
It's hard to pick. It really is. I mean, actually, because I
Super
watched the
Bowl
whole.
was pretty good too, as well.
Oh, the
Like,
Super
it
Bowl
came
was.
down to the last play of the game too.
Yeah, yeah. That was pretty cool, and yeah, it could have been crazy that last play if it had come off the ridiculous little flick thing because Burrows is getting closed down and nearly sacked and flicks it off and it nearly gets caught. And if that got caught, it's something that's
Yeah,
this amazing end to the Super Bowl that's just super crazy and
yeah,
it would have
yeah.
been hilarious. But I think I'm gonna pick the Chiefs Bengals just because I actually managed to watch the whole game. It's the only game I fully watched all season. Everything else was just highlights or
Fair
bits and
enough.
pieces here and there. So I'm going to pick that one for that pure reason and the great comeback, like say 20 odd point comeback by the Bengals that we called as well, and it happened exactly how
Yeah,
we called it.
yeah, and the
And
defense and everything. You're right.
yeah,
And
and it was just a great turnaround for them, like from the defensive point of view from the previous week. We were pointing that out in that stream as well. That you know the Bengals the previous week, the defense had just been horrible, and Joe Burrows had pulled them through despite being sacked. However many billion times, 9 times or whatever it was that he got sacked, and yet still managed to keep their drives alive. And yeah,
yeah,
so um, and turn around and against the Chiefs, like their line stood up a bit better. He didn't get sacked quite as often. They gave him a bit more space. He was able to wiggle out of anything that did come his way. Yeah, it was just an amazing game. And just to say the classic, passe. It was a game of two halves, and it really was. Like the
yeah,
first half was all Chiefs, and it was really awesome. Um, just seeing the Chiefs O line just do what the Chiefs have done for the last couple of years, and just push their way through. And then the second half for it all to turn around, and the Bengals to come out and have that slight psychological edge at going to half and coming out and really pushing on from it. Um, it was just amazing. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could feel the momentum turning towards the Bengals in that game. Like it was
Yeah,
happening slowly, slowly. That was a slow burn game that's really enjoyable. I think that's the sort of game like a sports fan who really enjoys the nitty gritty of sports, like where you can feel the momentum
yeah,
shift and the atmosphere like to turn, and like those are the sort of games that kind of stick in your mind, like it's similar to that immortal game you and I were at Eden Park during the 2015 Cricket World Cup,
yeah.
where I know everybody says South Africa didn't choke, but they totally choked.
They totally
That
choked.
semi-final.
Yeah. No, you're right, and you can feel that pressure. And like, it wasn't as bad a choke as previous years, and yeah, and the New Zealanders played out of their skin to get there, but
Yeah,
there was a choke. There was moments there. There was that catch in the outfield that they sort of ran into each other and didn't. It's just those small moments where it's just, if South Africa had taken it, completely different story, and then totally wouldn't have choked. It would have been this big story about how they've overcome the chokers tag and everything. But
yeah.
it was those small moments that they didn't grasp or couldn't grasp for some reason. And
Let's be
yeah,
honest, they would have choked against Australia in the finals. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
but so did we. So yeah,
We didn't choke, we just lost
we
badly.
just
We
lost.
got thrashed. That
We
wasn't a
got
choke. You have to actually be in a winning position to choke. We never were in a winning position in that final,
you have
I
good
would
point.
say.
No, no. Um, yeah, I
You
was
could
just more thinking
argue
from
in
a.
the 92 World Cup semi-final, you could argue we choked.
Hmm.
But, Inzamam did Inzamam things.
Yeah, yeah. That one I look at. The 92 World Cup, I don't really see as a choke either. I see that as just Insuman going, you know what, I'm going to win a game. Anybody going to play? No? Okay, I'll just do it. Thanks. Thanks for coming, everybody. Nobody else has a say in how this game goes, only me. So,
Yeah,
yeah, he's a sort of player when he started in that form, it's not a lot you can do about it.
exactly, exactly. I mean, that's one of the classic games in Cricket World Cup history. As much as we were on the wrong side of it, I think anyone would agree that for the neutrals, that had to be like an incredible game to watch.
Yeah, it was just amazing sort of things happening. I mean, we just played them. We lost to Pakistan twice in
Yeah.
2 games in less than a week, and it was just.
Until the 2011 World Cup, New Zealand had never beaten Pakistan in a Cricket World Cup game.
Yeah, I think I knew that as well. I think they came up in that World Cup, but that's still amazing. It's crazy thoughts.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But see, Pakistan took their moment. They lucked into a final and they won it.
yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. They had that sort of similar, generational player come through, have a team that just, you say, everything
I
sort of fell into place for that tournament, and they took it by the scruff of the neck and were like, we're winning this tournament.
like as a theme with this Bengals team, like they managed to make it to like that South Africa team in '99. They were the best one-day international side in the world, I think. I think
Yeah,
they had like all rounders for days, and Lance Klusner was the best one-day international player in the world at that point.
yeah,
Like he was like he invented the range hitting. Like they said, like the Australians apparently came to see practice, and because he was injured, Lance Klusner wasn't in the net. He was just getting the coach to throw balls, and he was just hitting it like a golf ball as hard
right,
as he
yeah,
could. And they were just like, "What is he doing? That's not. He's not taking throwdowns. He's not." And they're like, also, boy, can he hit it hard? Like we can't hit it that hard. And he
yeah,
practiced
yeah,
it, and you can see the practice because like there's like just before that infamous run out, like a couple of balls before he hits the six that goes through Paul Rifle's hands, like because it's too fast for him to
yeah,
catch. There's like no chance.
yeah,
But they didn't even have that chokers tag. I remember thinking, oh, South Africa will win the next World Cup. They're hosting it.
yeah. No,
And
that was sort of the start of the infamous choke or chokers tag, really, and it sort of started cementing through the next few World Cups. But
yeah, like the '92 World Cup that was rain, that you can't say that was a choke.
No.
That was just bad rules, whatnot. At the '96 World Cup, they legitimately got beaten by the better team that day. Like, with the West Indies played better than them. Like, they
Yeah.
outbatted them, outfielded them, outbowled them. You know, so you can't they just didn't play well against the Windies in that game. And then the 99 choke, 100%.
Yeah.
Both games, by the way, choke, 100%.
100%.
Looking 2003, so much choke. I can't
All the
even
choke.
get into it. And the 2008 World Cup, they somehow managed to lose to Bangladesh in the Super 8s and not make
Yeah.
the semis. So, you know, they didn't choke, but they weren't playing well. 2011, they should have beaten New Zealand in
Yeah.
that quarterfinal. Like,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
was no New Zealand just did enough to beat them. And then, yeah, 2015 choke. And
Choke, yeah.
2019, they weren't good enough to make
No.
it to a semifinal.
Yeah,
They somehow decided they could do without AB de Villiers, like, you know.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
that didn't really work out for them. So
yeah. That's so weird. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, you gotta take your opportunity when you get it. Like, this is especially for a sport like NFL. It's so rare to get dynasties. Even Tom Brady went 10 years without one.
yeah,
Like, for a while, it looked like he might just retire with three. Like, he managed to lose two last-minute Super Bowls to Eli Manning, like the New York Giants.
yeah.
So yeah, you can't. Uh, and also to Nick Foles somehow in Philadelphia Eagles. But you know, he got four late in his career and three early in his career. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure he's not complaining. But yeah, he could have gotten a big injury and not done one, and yeah, the Patriots wouldn't have like 6 rings. He wouldn't have 7 if something had happened.
yeah.
You got to take your chances when you get them. Is
Oh,
what I'm
exactly.
saying. You're a Bills fan. They somehow managed to make 4 Super Bowl finals in a row without winning any. So
Yeah,
you know exactly what that is.
yeah, yeah.
Now, speaking of other things that's happened in February, moving on from the NFL, we had a test match, but we've also had a pretty interesting test cricket season. How would you rate so far this year Black Caps performances? I think that first test match against Bangladesh, I'll share my thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Clearly, I'm going to talk a lot about Bangladesh, but you tell me what you thought about that game.
Um, I just thought pretty much that Bangladesh had come in with a good game plan and they executed it perfectly. And New Zealand just looked like they were just expected to win. Um, they sort of, yeah, they didn't really adapt to what Bangladesh was throwing at them, and Bangladesh just outplayed them, which it's hard to say as a New Zealand fan, but yeah, it was just not good enough by New Zealand in that game. Like it looked pedestrian. It looked like they just expected it to be a walkover, like always. You know, it was almost like they hadn't just they'd sort of gone, well, the test matches in India were test matches against India in India. Like, oh well, that things we're back to New Zealand conditions. We're going to go back to how we were last year, and they did not. Uh, and I noticed the difference going to the Christchurch test there because they, looked like they're actually like, oh, we have to play properly and do things, and they bounce back a lot. And that seems also right for the South African test at Hagley Park in Christchurch as well, where they're actually, I mean, there's a bit of Matt Henry in there going, yeah, I'm the other really good fast bowler we have. Remember me? Yeah, I'm just as good as the other guys. I just don't get picked because I'm just the odd one out. But look at me take all the wickets and also score a 50, just because I can. Um, but also there's a little bit of conditions helping them there, where the first session was very bowler friendly, and they took full full advantage of that. But once again, I think those Christchurch tests, they looked very much more focused, more less. it's a test match in New Zealand and we're going to win it. But that first one up at Bay Oval in Tauranga was very much, to me, seems very much lethargic. Like they just expected to turn up and to win. Like it was just already a foregone conclusion. And it's international cricket, and you can't have that mindset. And Bangladesh showed it. They say they had the game plan, they executed it, and they applied pressure, and they convincingly won. And there was, I can't fault what Bangladesh did there. They played perfectly, and they deserved the win. Yeah.
I think I'll talk a bit about the South Africa one before I go into Bangladesh. Just about that. Like, I think the commentators, because I did watch that game, quote unquote, while working, they showed that a lot of the balls that the South African players got out to were not going to hit the stumps, and the ball and the pitch didn't have any uneven bounce. Sure, it had speed and it bounced absolutely, but you could play it on length. It was consistent. And once you worked out where your off stump was and you do the proper batting things, you could stay in there and because it showed, it became very good for batting, I think, later
As
on.
I said, I think it was only really the first session that was fully but fully bowler friendly, where there was good bowling conditions. New Zealand took advantage of it, which gave the psychological edge of, this is a demon pitch. Which once it gets into your batter's head, sometimes it's hard to shake it out because they're expecting it to do weird things, so they play like it's doing weird things, and then they get out just because it's a good length ball that's in the right spot.
Yeah. So I've got this new model of how I look at Test cricket. Cricket in general, but this really I've tweaked the model a bit to be more specific to Test cricket. Test cricket, you know how we say games like football and hockey, rugby union, Aussie rules, they're not really about moving they're not, people used to think about these are the games about how you move the ball and progress to get to positions, but really those sports are about space.
Yeah.
You're playing to control spaces, and the team that controls manages to execute their game plan vis-a-vis space control are gonna win.
Yeah.
But who can do it better than the other side? So we can see teams that have 80% possession, and we can see they're not in control of the other team have perfect control of their counter-attacking game plan. They just lose 80%. 80% possession and they lose 4-0. We've seen some really good tiki-taka type teams lose like that because the opposition team just know when to pounce on the mistake and they don't panic. And they
I can think of a particular Chelsea versus Barcelona semi-final in the Champions League where that epitomized that. So yeah.
And we'll ignore football and hockey because those are real-time strategy games, in the model, as opposed to turn-based games. And real-time strategy games are also always played on a secondary axis, which is where I think we play cricket on, which is the probability axis. You want to always make the other player play as many uncertain shots as possible in a row. And shots where they're not sure if what they've done is the right thing.
Yeah.
And the longer you can keep doing it, without them swapping over the strike, it's fine if they hit a boundary, like an uncertain ball that goes to the boundary or something like that. But you don't want them to rotate the strike. You want to keep pressure, keep that uncertainty mounting, because that's what builds the pressure. And the more number of uncertain balls you throw, this is like a continuation of that idea I float around about from Marcos, where it's the criminals have to keep getting lucky because the policemen only have to get lucky once.
Yeah, exactly.
To catch them, and that's it. And the bowler only has to get lucky once.
Yeah.
Right. So the batsman should have do everything in their power not to get out to balls that are not going to get them out.
Yeah.
Make the batsman get you out in make the bowler get you out in Test cricket, and this is what don't think about, I think, as much in the like from a. I don't think analytics in cricket have been properly implemented from a batsman perspective. Like you're in T20s, yes, because they think about things like matchups. These are the kind of balls they go for. What are the short boundaries? What are the what are my areas that I can hit it in?
Yeah.
Where how am I gonna catch the flight? All these other things. So like T20 is also played on a probability axis. You're controlling. You are both trying to decide. Trying to make the other person as uncertain as possible. Like both of you.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's like
Yeah,
a very advanced version of rock paper scissors. So when you come down
yeah,
to it, that's what cricket is.
yeah. Especially T20s,
Right. Yeah,
because
but
you know
yeah,
what both
yeah, but
sides are trying to do, and so
yeah,
both sides are going to try and
yeah,
manufacture the environment to be conclusive to what they want to do, and they're going to move around.
yeah,
So, and you're playing that. Rock
yeah,
paper scissors is trying to guess what the other person's doing.
yeah.
So
Like
you're doing the same
this
thing,
is
right?
exactly what. Yeah. So you're always doing some sort of. You're always trying to play a version of rock paper scissors. You try and not to give away what you're trying to give away as much as possible with the other side.
Yeah,
Um. Now so that's how South Africa basically kept going for rock,
yeah,
even though they knew that New Zealand were occasionally throwing in paper.
yeah,
You know, we all know the one guy who does rock paper scissors and always picks rock. We all know one guy who does it
yeah.
from our childhood days.
Yes. Or my children's
One of
days,
us
as the
might
case may
be.
be. Or my children's days, as
I-
the case may be.
yes, it's always rock. Don't get me. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But said person always picks rock. Gets very upset that you pick paper because that's cheating.
Paper's overpowered, man. OP, please nerf.
Yep, yep. So the in that Bangladesh game, I think New Zealand actually played pretty well in that first three sessions. Like that first day, they
Hmm.
played pretty well, except for the last maybe half session. And like the first session of the second day is when Bangladesh went in for the kill. So New Zealand like lowered its intensity, lost more wickets than they needed to on that first day, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Uh, like they didn't need to lose Tom Blundell. Like Tom Blundell looked very uncertain. Devon Conway was set, Tom Blundell, and then the next day, very quickly they lost Rachin Ravindra, Kyle Jamieson, everybody. So
Yeah.
the fact that they only put on another what 80 runs, I want to say, on the first set, not another 80, was it about another about was it 50 runs, 50ish runs, wasn't it? 50, 60 runs is what they
But
scored.
258 for 5 at the end of day 1, and they ended up at. Where are we?
238. So
328.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, 328. So exactly about 70 runs. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's an underperformance when you have like player like Kyle Jamieson, Rachin Ravindra, um, and who are really, Rachin Ravindra was picked as a batsman who bowled a little bit for that game, and Kyle Jamieson can bat. We know Rachin can stick around as well. He's not,
Yeah.
he's able to play long, patient innings, and he will get more chances, I think, to build on his career. So that'll come. And yeah, Henry Nichols, who got out, but very quickly instead of staying on to try and get a few more extra runs as well he could. So that was like an in, and Bangladesh from at that point didn't let New Zealand back in the game. Like the momentum always felt like it was with Bangladesh.
Yeah. You
Um,
say it was that.
like
The end of that
They got
first day, probably
yeah,
the
like
last two
40 odd
wickets.
runs. Yeah, they got 40 odd runs in the first innings, and then they got a 100-run partnership. And at that point, like it felt to me like Bangladesh wasn't gonna lose the game.
Yeah,
Like New Zealand had the advantage, winning the toss, batting first, and the score they put was actually pretty good. It was one that you could, take pressure or put pressure on Bangladesh with.
mm.
But like Bangladesh got there in 100 and got to their score around 120-ish overs. Batting over two and a bit days.
Yeah,
Like it was that was the plan, and everybody kind of contributed in that top seven of the batting order.
yeah, yeah.
Like
And
everybody,
especially when you take into account the number of balls faced, like
yeah,
that was the other big thing I think with the Bangladesh first innings is they soaked up a lot of time and a lot of balls. They made the New Zealanders field for a
yeah,
very long time, which
yeah,
is always going to just drain the energy, which makes the
mm,
next batting innings that little bit much harder, especially after the collapse. Like I think that was the turning point. Yeah, say the end of day one. Those two wickets, Conway and Blundell, which sort of gave Bangladesh something at the end of that day one that they could take into day two, feeling a bit buoyed up about, and they did. I mean, they say 70 runs, wiped the
yeah.
rest of the New Zealanders out, which say it's underperforming. It's not horrendous, but it is morale sapping, I guess, a bit. That it feels like a collapse. It feels like could have done better. Like that was a bit horrible. And
That
like
pitch had no demons. I think we could
yeah,
see,
and
like
from Blundell
if you were
down,
patient, yeah,
like after Blundell's the only one that got into double digits from him down. Like I know it's all mostly bowlers, but or all rounders slash bowlers, but like there's nothing there to say. Nichols did his best to bat through.
yeah. I mean, Will
But
Young also kind of threw his wicket away. He was batting really well, I thought.
yeah, yeah,
Like and him and Conway could have probably batted out that day. Like that's the level of how benign that pitch looked.
yeah,
So Bangladesh actually, I think, at that first day just kept plugging in and waiting for an opening to
yeah.
happen. And in a way, maybe one or two of those wickets were gifts, like the Conway wicket. And then after that, like Blundell getting out, and everyone after that was like Ross Taylor, I think, got out to a pretty good ball, um, and it was a really good catch, and that's gonna happen. The
Yeah.
opposition are entitled to play well,
Oh yeah.
and
I think
but Henry
that's
Nichols came in and pretty much settled right away, and
yeah.
that showed how that it wasn't a difficult pitch to get into easily as well.
No, no. Uh, yeah, but I think Nichols this summer actually is showing that he gets a lot of bad press about him. But the South African game
I,
actually had a great commentary on the Cricinfo one, which was Nichols is the sort of player that has like 9 really great innings and has one bad innings, and everybody's like, oh, he needs to be dropped. Like for some reason, whenever he has that one bad innings or one not as good innings, it's not even bad half the time. It's just not as good. Um,
I
that he gets
wonder
called
if
for.
I wonder if Henry Nichols is a horses for courses player. Because
Uh,
given his weakness against top quality off spin,
I
which
think
India
that's
did
yeah,
expose, and the so if he's playing against, like, if we're obviously in a situation like we're playing India in a World Cup, World Championship final in England, it's a different story. But if he's playing outside like New Zealand or England and places like Australia, places like South Africa,
yeah.
it's gonna be he might struggle, and I don't know how good his record is in Asia. I think it's decent, but yeah,
It's okay.
in the subcontinent, like all the subcontinent teams have a good off spinner, and
Yeah,
Australia have a good off spinner. So
yeah, yeah.
y-
I mean, there is that, but his average is still 40 odd. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
that was the
Given
other
like
that was the other point that was
uh,
brought up is that
Yeah.
he looks bad in comparison to Latham and Williamson and Taylor and the
Like
rest of our
Tom
top order.
Latham Tom Latham is quietly maybe one of the best players in the world at the moment. I mean,
Yeah,
but the world batting average since the 2015 World Cup, or sorry, maybe since 2017, the batting average of Test cricket has gone down by 5 in the last 5 years. So that's
yeah,
an incredible drop. So and most of it has gone down to fast bowling.
yeah,
So fast bowlers are killing you. Tom Latham is mostly been our number one first choice opener in that period, and he has increased his average by almost 10 in that
yeah,
time. So he's gotten better while everybody else has gotten worse, and most of his good innings and performances have come in this time. I will also do a proviso that New Zealand is one of the few places where the batting average hasn't lowered. Like New Zealand is
mm,
one of the best batting places. So every player who does well in New Zealand conditions now as a batter, you know that it's because New Zealand is a place where people are able to bat. It's New Zealand and Sri Lanka are the two places where it hasn't gone down, and everywhere else, literally, it has gone down massively. The batting averages.
yeah,
Um, like, sure, the Steve Smith had the lowest to fall because he was on eight. He was averaging something like 80. But his average in this period has been in the 40s, so he's lost 40 on his batting average in that time.
yeah,
Obviously, Steve Smith is still incredible.
yeah,
I'm not anyway saying he's not a good player, but just to give you an example, like that's how good a player he is, and even he's been impacted.
yeah.
Virat Kohli is in a similar situation. I think his batting, I think in that time, since that time, Virat Kohli's not scored a Test century since 2017, like something ridiculous like that.
That's crazy to think of, really.
Um, when you think about how many he scored before then.
Yeah,
So Tom Latham is also known to be good against spin. He's as close as we have to a complete player. Like I will also point out that Kane Williamson is one of the few players whose averages have gone up in that time as well, gone up
yeah,
by 1 or 2. But once again, they both play a lot in New Zealand. But
yeah,
Tom Latham also has a really good overseas batting record. He was one of the few batters I thought who played really well in India in both Test matches. And he's obviously played well in England against England and in that match against India as well.
yeah,
So, but if this was any other period in New Zealand history, we would be like this, like he would be rightfully lionized as one of the all-time greats. I am making the case he belongs in that pantheon of all-time great New Zealand batsmen. And he was third after Kane and Ross, but Kane and Ross are like all-time level players. So
yeah, yeah,
he's still only 29. So I hope he can. I think if we play enough Test matches, he's one of those players who could get into, five figures, 10,000 Test runs. You know, he's got 12 centuries. He could end up with decent number there as well, maybe 20 odd, more than not. I think 20 odd's underrated. Maybe I think given he's 29, he's got at least another 5-6 years to play. Probably captaining a lot of that as well once Kane retires.
yeah, yeah,
And he's growing into the captaincy. He's obviously really determined to do well. And I think about that. He started off as our keeper, and he's
yeah.
moved into becoming like a gun opener. To be fair, he was never really a keeper. He just
No, no.
kept to get into the
He,
team.
he could keep.
We don't do that anymore, thank God.
Yeah.
But he is
So
a really,
interestingly, for a bit of that time, we took an opener and turned him into a keeper, and we took the keeper and turned him into an opener. And
yes.
between Watling and Latham, swapped them positions.
Also, Brendan McCullum.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Brendan McCullum made the choice himself to go from
Yeah.
keeper to.
Well, Peter McGlashan said that he once played in a Test match as a keeper where they had Tom Latham, B.J. Watling, and Brendan McCullum not keep.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not even a specialist keeper. I don't understand what was the thinking behind that. So New Zealand cricket do weird things like this. But yeah, as I said, he's Mr. Consistent. I mean, I think he's quite rightfully maybe considered one of our greatest all-time openers, along with Glenn Turner. You can't separate the two almost in my mind. They're both so good and so consistent on
Yeah.
all conditions as shown. And in the modern game, where it is difficult to bat, Hayes got a very impressive record. So just
Yeah.
just giving him some due. And like, yeah, I'm sure he was super disappointed to lose so badly in that test against India and then lose against Bangladesh. So to
Yeah.
come back and make sure the boys were on, got their socks up and put on a show, put on a performance against Bangladesh, and then put in a shift against South Africa, just didn't let South Africa come back into the team.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been very impressed with him. Like, to me, he's arguably, since the Test World Championship, one of our players of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely this season he's stepped up massively, taken the captaincy with Kane being injured. And yeah, been one of our best batters, and he's staying nice and consistent. He's always put in the effort, and hasn't really made too many errors in captaincy either. I mean,
Yeah,
India,
and
you're gonna get Indian stuff happening, and that's fine.
yeah, and India they also managed to draw the first game, which is, they got some points out of that series in India.
Yeah,
So they'll take that. They even said that, being able to get any World Championship points in India was going to be worth it. Was going to be a good result because it's so difficult to win there, and I agree. Now,
yeah,
one of the things, as I say, from a Bangladeshi fan perspective, I think this is where the players, I hope the coaches and the playing leadership group talk about it. Like, the New Zealand didn't like collapse. They weren't playing terrible against Bangladesh. New Zealand had one of those performances that the sports team will go through waves. They lost below their mean. They went 5% below their mean.
yeah,
And Bangladesh just found a way to get 5% above their mean and beat them comfortably. So that
yeah, yeah,
is the level of that team overseas. That is your potential. If they want to they want to win test matches away from Bangladesh and at home, obviously, but especially away from Bangladesh in the Test World Championship era, that they should know that, like, like that second match, sure, like they were probably celebrating and they probably thought, we got 12 points, and we're gonna at least share points, worst case scenario, in away tour of New Zealand. How many teams
yeah,
can say that? That's an incredible performance. So they maybe that's something the coaches need to address, because they are a young side. There's so many young players in that Bangladesh side, especially from a batting perspective, and they're all like, this is the specialist Bangladesh test team. Sure, you've had the old hands, Mushfiq Rahims, who got 12 in that first innings and saw them out in the second innings to
yeah,
make sure they were there for the victory. But players like Monimul Hawk, his record doesn't look that impressive. He averages in the high 30s, but this is not a strong batting error. So he averages 41 batting, which is, again, in a very strong bowling era. He's got 11 centuries, and he's a specialist test player. He's the captain of the test side, and um, I think showed that he's got good leadership skills from
yeah,
on the field as well, like to lead the team, get that, the do what's needed to win games. So it's gonna be a very interesting World Test series for Bangladesh. It's gonna be a really interesting World Test series. There's been a lot of drop points, a lot of mixed results, like India losing to South Africa, to come back from
yeah,
behind victory there. Who knows what's going to happen in that India-England game to finish off that series? Obviously, India did what they did to us. They're going
yeah.
to have a bunch of other home games, which I'm sure they'll win comfortably as well. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game of cricket. I don't think we're going to have that good. We're going to have it that easy in the next game against South Africa, though.
No, no. Though it is on the same pitch, or the same ground, so does make it interesting about how that works, and whether that um, the psychological damage that South Africa may have taken from being so rolled on the ground plays through or not. At least if you go to a different ground, you can be like, oh, it's a new ground, new things. But this one, whether that damage of this, we got completely outplayed on this ground, not the same pitch, but the same ground. Whether that has any lingering effects, whether they'll just shrug it off. I think that's going to be an interesting bit. Because, it's not a normal thing in New Zealand conditions, especially for playing on the same test ground two
Yeah.
matches in a row against the same opposition. So it will be
Yeah.
very interesting to see whether there's any impacts of that.
Absolutely.
And
And
just FYI, Coley hasn't scored a century this decade. So since his last century was in 2019.
wow. Okay,
Yeah,
so it was 2019 that he last got a
yeah, he scored
century.
2 centuries in 2019, and since then, yeah, he's only made it to 50. He hasn't made it to triple digits.
Apparently, he hasn't scored a century since Ibadat Hussain, who was man of the match in that Bangladesh game, got him out and gave him a salute to send him off.
That's what it is. Yeah,
He,
he's also got out I think or not quite every innings, but because he hasn't, something he hasn't batted in 7 innings. But if he's batted, he hasn't had a not out in that same time. So he hasn't.
well,
So if he's gone out to bat, he's got out and hasn't scored a century. I mean, and it's some of his lowest averages, as you were saying. So, like in 2020, his average was 19.33. In 21, came up to 28.21. And this year so far, it's 54. But I mean, that's just the one match, 2 innings. So,
yeah.
but yeah, so that's some pretty.
I
I
mean,
mean, the
hopefully that's the
19.33 is the lowest he's had in any calendar year, and the 28.21 is the third. So his debut year in 2011, he was averaged 22.44. That's the only other one lower than the 2021 average. I mean, the rest are 40s or greater, so that sort of shows that as well.
nice.
Also, strike rate's right down as well, so they're down in the
Yeah,
40s in that,
I
and previously it's high 50 or mid 50s or higher.
yeah. The other thing I want to point out is there's going to be a lot of lazy analysis saying it's because of T20 cricket and
Yeah,
white
yeah,
ball cricket. We've heard these excuses back in the 90s about one-day cricket
yeah,
ruining batting for test cricket, and then in the 2000s test batting just exploded, even though that's the decade T20 cricket was invented. The strike rate's also down
yeah,
in
yep,
world cricket. They're not getting out hitting. If they were getting out hitting, I would understand. Okay, low runs but we're attacking more. Makes
yep,
sense. That is not what is happening. And also, when we attack more, we tend to not get out in Test cricket because you're generating more uncertainty on the bowling side. They don't
yeah,
know the areas to bowl to you. When you attack, especially if you're rotating the strike a lot, that's how you increase your strike rate consistently in Test cricket, not by hitting lots
yeah,
of boundaries. Um, like unless you happen to have a Nathan Astle like innings, like back in
yeah.
2000, or like a Brendan McCullum like innings. Like those are rare. The reason why they're celebrated innings.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, the second thing I will point out is even players like Pujara, who doesn't play T20, has a lower average, and Rehane, all these test specialists have lower averages. So what that wouldn't make sense at all. These guys don't play T20 cricket, for India, and I
exactly.
don't care what you say. Pujara is enough of a gun to still be a good player in domestic levels of T20. Okay, he doesn't need to, radically uh, do anything. He can just play. He can still be a natural and do well in IPL and whatnot
Exactly.
because he's that good. And same
Yeah.
with Rehani. But they're test specialists, when it comes to international level, or they might play the occasional. Like Rehani obviously plays ODIs, but he doesn't play T20s.
Mm.
So yeah, the so it's not just that. Like we know there's some. It's like probably a trifecta. You've got analysis. You've got. There's nowhere to hide. Every batsman's weakness is so ruthlessly exposed in the world today.
Yeah, yeah.
and it's so difficult to. It's so easy to be found out. Whereas back in the day, I think you had a few extra. You had a season or two before people worked out, okay, this is what we should do to this guy, and you had to
Yeah.
adapt your game. You have to keep constantly adapting as a batsman now with your
Video
game.
analysis, just means you
Yeah,
can't rest. You have to adapt because any series, the
unless you
opposition's
have
going
an
to be like hours and hours of footage of you out there batting, and they will go over and over and over again and just find the slight technical weakness you might have, and then
you
develop their
have
plans
the
around that.
ideal technique for your body. Like you have basically gotten a perfect technique that gives nothing away. It's only when you make a mistake that people, you get out. You've got
Yeah,
that sort of technique. Like someone like Clayton Williamson who plays super late on the ball has
yeah,
that. Like Virat Kohli, I think has that technique. It's not technique that's doing Virat Kohli in. Like I
no,
can promise you that
yeah,
he's not. And I don't know about Steve Smith. I think Steve Smith is the best player at playing with his technique, but it's a unique technique. And if there
yeah,
are,
yeah,
he's still doing well. He's just not doing Steve Smith well. So this is he's not averaging 80, but that was never sustainable. So
yeah, yeah,
I'm not gonna say that Steve Smith has probably developed the best technique for himself, and he's evolved it as well. And
yeah, yeah,
Kane
exactly.
Williamson has evolved it, and Virat Kohli has evolved it, and Ross Taylor has evolved it. These players, Joe Root. Joe Root is the only other guy who I think has a really unorthodox technique and does well at international level. Like, him, Steve Smith, and Manis are like that school, whereas you've got Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, Kane Williamson, Ross Taylor, who are all classic, like textbook. All different,
Yeah,
but they're all doing something from the textbook.
yeah, exactly.
And the so it's definitely a bunch of things. Like as I said, the wobble seam is an incredible delivery. It's changed the game massively. New Zealand happened to have a bowling attack that does play it really well. Everybody in the team seems to know it. I think it's really interesting that the New Zealand bowling attack. I think arguably New Zealand has the best second and third innings bowling attack in the world. Like a team that can, when they have to bowl second, can get wickets or bowl third, get wickets in that third innings.
Yeah, yeah,
Where
yeah,
it might be the best bowling batting conditions. Just because they're so disciplined and keeping that uncertainty, and they're so patient about getting. Like they literally see it as a hunt, and they're just constantly going like, just keep generating the pressure, just keep generating the pressure, make it go over this might take 10, 15 overs, but we know what to do. Starve them of rotation and like keep the certainty away, and eventually they'll get out. Like it doesn't matter how set
yeah,
the batsman is; they don't really care about that. Um, and I think like it's just so obvious Tim Southee is such a big leader in that team for doing that. Like he sets that mindset.
yeah, 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 exactly.
I I think like one of my like new philosophies with Test cricket is if you're going with a three-man pace bowling attack, New Zealand has a luxury of going in with four
Yeah,
and occasionally able to pick a spinner as well with that attack. So they can actually use five bowlers, which was once again makes your bowling attack very potent. I think if you are in those, if you have a three-man bowling attack, um, you need one of your bowl, and this role will change in the team. You have one of your bowlers has to be the gun. He's the person who will generate quick wickets out of nowhere. They'll just burst out with some unplayable delivery, and they have that in them, and then you can build on that to create another mini collapse. The one brings two bowler who can change a game.
yeah,
So in this team, it's clearly Trent Boult, the left arm swing bowler who just comes in, gets gets that always is able to generate a certain level of uncertainty when he's like fully rested and able to bowl at his peak. And when he's determined enough, he can just will wickets almost.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
back in the day, what Shane Bond did for the team. He's in that line. Shane,
Yeah,
the leader is the guy who sets the tone, sets the plan, keeps making sure the bowlers know that they have to stay patient, keep the morale, keep the where are the areas to generate the uncertainty, and they're constantly trying things to figure out the where that's coming from, and that's obviously Tim Southey in our team.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And the third team every bowling lineup needs is your workhorse.
yeah,
You need a bowler who's happy to bowl first change, take the old ball, happy to do just bowl consistently a particular plan, do it
yeah,
ugly, whatever's needed by the team. And I think with Neil Wagner, we have the best workhorse bowler New Zealand's ever had.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
Arguably in the
like
world, really. Like he's just that role.
there's been some very good workhorse bowlers
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
The likes of Joel Garner,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Vernon Philander, people who didn't take the new ball, but they just were tall and they had something. Whereas like Neil Wagner does it with the bouncers being left-handed, and then now he's also added I can also do the swing bowling. I know you're
yeah,
expecting the bowler, but I can also swing the ball, and I also know how to do the wobble seam now.
yeah.
And I'm a
Well,
left-handed I'm a left-handed Tim Southey who bowls bouncers.
yeah.
What are you gonna
I would
do?
argue that
And
it's not. He knows it now. He always knew that. That's his stock balls in A class
yeah,
stuff. Like in the domestic scene, he's the opening bowler, swing bowler, line and length, wobble
yeah.
seam, all the rest. Just in test matches, he plays the role of I'm being the
I
workhorse
don't
while I
think
bounce them,
I
and
don't
he's
think
just
he
now
had the
bringing it
wobble
in.
seam because what I
Maybe not
understand,
wobble seam
Tim
then.
Southey is the one who's taught everybody in the team how to bowl the wobble seam.
Yeah,
And it's a very difficult ball to master, so it does actually take a few seasons in the nets to get it under
yeah, yeah.
control, and you can bowl it in a
Maybe it was
test match.
just maybe it was just good enough wobble seam for first class in New Zealand as opposed to internationals.
Yeah,
That's a reasonable step up, right? You can get away with a
yeah, yeah.
lot with it being imperfect at first class level in New Zealand. But if you tried to do that at international level, like it's not going to stand. You
Yeah,
have
and a
to,
bowler who's left-handed and willing to just hit you with bouncers is scary AF if you're a
yeah, yeah,
right-handed batter. Like, we all
exactly,
remember the Mitchell Johnson Ashes where he was just coming out and bowling bouncers at the England batsmen and just getting them out. Like, he was
yeah, yeah,
just unplayable. But it's because he's left-handed. The England batters actually said he wasn't the fastest guy we'd ever faced.
yeah.
He just happened to be left-handed and hitting us at, like, really uncomfortable places
Well, that's
and getting wicket.
Wagner's well, right? But Wagner's he's quick enough, but he's also not that tall. Like he isn't
Yeah,
a super tall guy for bouncing, but he's
yeah,
able to generate enough. He puts enough effort in. He can generate enough lift to say to get into uncomfortable places, and it sort of
yeah,
skids. It's like a skiddy bouncer, is how batsmen seem to describe it. So it always,
yeah,
doesn't get as big as they expect, but also bigger than they expect. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
both at the same times, like
It's difficult
into
for
uncomfortable
me
places.
it's difficult for me to overestimate how good a player. Like a lot of people go on about how Neil Wagner, how did South Africa never utilize him? But the thing is, when he was in South Africa, they had Vernon Philander, like I mentioned, and Jacques Kallis,
Yeah.
arguably the two most potent first change bowlers you could need. And they had like for opening, they had Mackay Antini, Dale Steyn,
Yeah.
and
And this
then
is
other other good players.
yeah, exactly. And this is before Wagner really fell into this mold as well, like into this role.
Yeah,
This is when he would have been still trying to be a quote unquote proper fast bowler of line and length,
yeah,
swinging it, trying to move it both ways,
yeah.
that sort of stuff. And as I remember, it took a
Apparently,
season or two in New Zealand before he really found his spot as well. Like he was,
yeah.
yeah,
And he also the bouncers thing. He didn't start off doing that for the Black Caps. I think
no,
apparently they tried it once, and then Brendan McCullum went, "Bro, just do this.
yeah,
This is all we need you to do for New Zealand. This is your role."
yeah,
And the other thing Neil Wagner does, he can bowl 10 over spells. It's incredible. Like the
yeah,
number of
or
times
more.
this is the only reason New Zealand doesn't have a spinner, can get away with not having a spinner. Neil Wagner bowls those overs.
Yeah, yeah, like
Like, sure,
yeah,
we've got Kyle Jamieson as well to carry some of that load, but,
yeah.
New Zealand get away with that not having a spinner sometimes because Neil Wagner does the role of being that middle innings wicket taker, getting it in the second and third innings.
And also the one, insane. The spinner rule of bowling a heap of overs through that
Yeah,
and with the old
yeah,
ball and just keeping it end tied down, picking up wickets and keeping the pressure on. And Wagner does that as a fast bowler, which is
yeah.
crazy. And you say you add in Jameson now, Colin de Grandhomme, like these are others that can just take up that slack as well. And it's
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I know Collington Grandholm is not like a heavy wicket taker, and he's more in the team as a batting all-rounder. But the thing is, he is able to bowl really, really economical overs where he doesn't concede runs and doesn't let the batsman change strike that often.
yeah, well,
And
it's
that's
the
all he
other role
needs
of
to
this.
do. He just needs to keep maintaining a certain level of uncertainty.
Yeah, exactly.
And as
It's the
long
other
as
role of
he
a
can
spinner,
keep
right?
as
It's
long as he can keep doing that, like that's all the other team need from him. They don't need him to be the wicket taker. They have frontline bowlers to take wickets.
yeah.
Yeah.
You say we want wickets, we just bring Bolt back in, and he'll find a wicket. If it's got to that
Yeah.
point where it's like, we need to break a partnership, we need something. That's when Bolt comes back in. Throw the
Or
ball to
we like
Bolt.
every
Yeah,
bowler's tired. We need we've got three of our bowlers are tired. One of them need to bowl with Colin de Grandhomme for 10 overs. Colin de Grandhomme does a 5-over spell here, so these guys can get take a 10-over break to come back in a bit more refreshed. That's such a valuable role for a bowler to have.
yeah,
Sure, he's the fifth bowler. He doesn't need to bowl 30, 40 overs a game. He needs to bowl maybe 10, 15 overs a game, if that.
yeah, exactly.
And sometimes he's the sixth bowler, so not even that
Yeah,
sometimes.
sometimes.
So,
Like I don't even think he got thrown the ball much in the South Africa match, if at all. Not that he needed to, but
but I think a lot of his overs were quite important in that New Zealand India game in the World Test Championship
oh
because
yes,
they
definitely.
were very economical. He was generating enough uncertainty that batsmen weren't able to put him away. But they also had to keep focusing. So they're using up the mental energy that they need to make sure, keep him to face his deliveries. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're using up stamina points facing him.
Yeah,
When, a lot of times with part-timers, even if you're not getting runs off them, you're like, these are just need to not get out. I don't need to use up my full stamina that I would to a frontline bowler to this guy. Mental
yeah,
stamina. But they were, and that was giving time for people like Bolt, Wagner, and Saudi to rest.
yeah, exactly.
So that's my model. You need a leader, a gun, and a workhorse.
Yeah,
And so using that, I have basically rethought my ideas on what an all-time New Zealand Test team bowling lineup would be. I think for a gun, you have to pick the gunniest gun that ever gunned for New Zealand in Shane Bond.
yeah,
Like, yeah, a guy who's fast, swings the ball, also can reverse swing, also like happy to bowl bouncers and
yeah,
and very accurate line and length, doesn't give anything away. Like that's the guy you want. Yeah, that's the guy who's your gun. Like, yeah, sure,
yeah,
he's a right-hander, but given his speed, he's got
yeah.
everything else. Literally, like if you could swing out, you could bowl outswing that accurately at that pace. You're incredible, and he could also get one to bowl in swing as well.
Yeah,
That's right. His stock delivery was this in swinging fast ball, and then his other one was the one that went out.
yeah.
So that was him. And then you've got your leader's obviously Richard Hadley because he's
Yeah.
Richard Hadley.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to explain that. Like, and he'd been the leader for like so long for New Zealand. Like he played until he was 39 to make sure the team knew how to bowl, what the plans were, how to be professional. So this team, he just needs to tell them how to bowl, and he just do the like. I'm very close to having Tim Southee be the leader guy in this team because he's just such a good leader. But
Yeah.
Richard Hadley's Richard Hadley.
Yeah, you gotta have Richard Hadley in there somewhere, I guess.
And like the third guy, I just have to have a workhorse. And like I said, I don't think there's ever been as good a workhorse bowler for New Zealand as Neil Wagner, and he's
Yeah.
probably the best workhorse bowler in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
Like for the time that he gets it, like there you go. That's your all-time New Zealand bowling lineup, in my opinion, fast bowling. And
Yeah.
I am thinking that maybe, given his record, you might actually have a case to make Ajaz Patel your spinner. If you are picking a spinner in your all-time New Zealand bowling attack,
Yeah.
he's the guy who gets the wickets.
Yeah. I think he. Yeah. I almost want to pick him just as the all-time New Zealand 11 for playing away games, since he apparently only plays away games. Selectors won't pick him at home, so he
Yeah.
can play all the away games. And we
I
have Daniel Vittoria to play the home games and not bowl for no good reason.
yeah. Yeah, I mean his bowling average is 27 in Test. That's better than any other
Oh no,
Test
it's really
spinner
good.
for New Zealand.
Yeah, yeah.
And a strike rate under 60. So obviously he's also got a 10 for it. Come on.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I thought I understood the reasoning, but I did feel that was a bit harsh. That Bangladesh game at the Mount, not picking AJ's, coming off a 10 for. Like, come on, he
Yeah,
got
I
all the
think
wickets
that's
in the thing. Like, he gets to play a Test match at home. He played one in his in his birth city. Let him play somewhere in New Zealand just once, just to be like, here you go. You are actually an awesome bowler. We don't care if we've got New Zealand green conditions. Like we'll bowl the best bowler at the moment.
I think it would work as well because Ajaz Patel doesn't bowl like a left arm spinner. He's not the super accurate, gets it on point
Yeah, yeah,
using like he bowls like he goes for runs because his economy is like at the 2.8, which is a bit higher than most left arm spinners. But he takes wickets because they try to attack him, and he tempts
yeah,
them into attacking shots, which is what a Test leg spinner does. Very few Test leg spinners in the world at the moment, and Test leg spin might be a dying art.
mm,
Because
which is sad.
most leg spinners go for being a T20 bowler, which is completely like leg spin in T20 is a very different discipline to leg spin in
Yeah,
tests. Like I'm not saying all of the test bowlers, all of the T20 guns who are really good at bowling leg spin and T20s, all of them could probably be a really good test bowler, but they haven't developed that awesome stock ball
yeah,
that you need to be a gun test bowler. Like you need
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
be that guy. They bowl. They're what makes you good in T20s is being able to bowl the variation at the right time. Just
yeah,
constantly bowling a ball that the batsman doesn't expect. Whereas in tests, you want to bowl a ball that make them uncertain about a ball that you're constantly gonna bowl to them.
yeah, yeah.
Like
Exactly.
and like you want to bowl as many balls in the same area as possible. That he'll play uncertain shots too.
Yeah, it's go back to
And a bat
analogy. In
and a batsman
T20,
you
you
want to
want to.
keep. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go back to your analogy. In a T20, the leg spinners needs to keep changing. Between rock, paper, scissors. Always doing
Yeah.
things, and maybe pulling out a lizard or a Spock every now and then, just to be like, see, I'm a leg spinner. I can do weird things.
Mm.
But in tests, yeah, because in tests, I look at it and go, well, the batter's got the option to pass in our rock, paper, scissors analogy. Batter also has the pass option. It doesn't matter what the bowler might go rock and the batsman just goes, pass, thanks. Not going to play a shot. Nope, no offer. So with a leg
I only
spinner,
need to. I only need to do. I, in theory, only need to do play a shot if you play. I only need to play if I think what I'm gonna play is,
going to beat you.
gonna beat you.
Yeah,
And if I think you favor paper and you rarely bowl rock, I might decide I'm gonna bowl scissors a lot.
yeah, yeah. I'm
Sort
going to
of
play my
thing.
scissors, and that's saying a leg spinner. That's what you got to be playing. You know, I'm doing paper, 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 rock. You
Yeah.
know, and how long can you do paper for? That the other person's like, no, you're going to do rock. Yeah, you're going to do rock. Nope, nope. Okay, you're definitely going to paper now. And when they go to do the scissors, that's when you pull out the rock. Like, haha, gotcha. So it's yeah, you got to get up that mindset of the batter. Like it's going to go like this. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. And then the variation. Whilst in
Yeah.
T20, it's got to be This ball could be going anywhere. It could be anything this time. Leg spinner, Rogan,
Yeah.
flipper, something. Who knows?
Yeah, and your gun bowler is the guy who has a delivery that goes when they go paper, you go lizard that eats paper, and they go, wait, you're not supposed to be able to like sorry pass when you go pass, and they go lizard this eats pass, and they're like, wait, what? But I
What?
pass like no, no.
That's not how this works. Like, but that's the rules of the game. No, not anymore.
So that's what your gun bowler does in your team, and sometimes your
Yeah.
gun bowler is a spinner, for some depending on the conditions. But I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
saying in a three-man pace bowling attack, that is what they do.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's often like obviously that role change. There'll be test matches where Tim Southee is bowling incredibly and he's the gun, and Trent Bolt will be the guy who's like, yeah, I'm gonna workhorse for us today.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I'm gonna bowl a lot of overs to support him, or yeah, or the and Neil Wagner will be like, look, I'm gonna look for the line and see where the batsman's weak, and I'm gonna bowl all these variations to try, be the leader type. Yeah, so this is the I think the fact that these three are they know their roles so well, and they know it's like Manchester City. Like,
Yeah.
when like not the last 2 weeks of Manchester City, by the way, but like before, back when we recorded our podcast,
That matches City.
that Manchester City, who like, when a player goes up, you can see a player automatically fill in the space because they know that's where they need to be.
Yeah.
And like for the defense, and then they know the attacking player knows exactly where to move so that the other player has somewhere to pass, or they're going to draw a defender away, so there'll be a space up there. It's like it works like clockwork. Everybody knows their role, and I think when the New Zealand bowling lineup is humming, that's what the bowlers all know what they're supposed to do. Like,
Yeah.
and that's how you build a good test team. Like everybody, you build it from the bowling up.
Yeah,
And I think in a weird way, I think it's no coincidence that New Zealand have their strongest test team in their history when we've had the best batting conditions in our history. Bowlers actually have to earn their wickets in New Zealand, actually
Yeah.
have to think about how many overs and be patient. Like New Zealand is actually a good place to bat if you're patient.
Yeah.
And the flip side of that is I think if you come from a country where batting is easier and you're like there's challenges, but it's easier, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not completely dead pitches, but they're good. Like you have to be patient and earn your runs, but they're there if you can be patient and earn your runs. When you go to a place where it's hard to bat, you'll do better than the local batters do. Like how it was in New Zealand with
Yeah.
like until the 2000s, like overseas openers average more in New Zealand than New Zealand openers, and New Zealand openers average more in overseas than they did in New Zealand, like
Yeah.
because it was so difficult to bat on, and that's because you develop your batting game by staying in.
Yeah, yeah.
Like in games, like not in the nets. That obviously helpful. Throwdowns are helpful. Visualizing, shadow batting, all of that's useful. You need to do those things. They're very, very important. But you don't develop your game without time in the middle in actual game situations that matter.
Yeah, definitely.
And like if you are getting out very quickly to bowlers because it's very difficult, you don't develop that game.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
And like I think England are seeing the downsides of like sure, your generationally talented players like Joe Root will do well, but
Yeah.
he's a generational talent. Like and he's not even playing white ball cricket for you, and he's gonna end up with unfortunately the record he has, like win-loss record that is.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he deserves to have a good team around him of players. Like and be like I hope he gets acknowledged as one of those great players and England's pantheon of great players, but he's probably going to be remembered like as like someone like Mike Atherton or Darren Goff, like the one or two good players in a very weak era. Yeah, and I think he deserves better than that, like because he's
Oh,
actually genuinely one of the best players in the world. Like Mike
yeah.
Atherton at times was a very good player, but he played in a very weak side, and then and I think because of the pressure of having to carry that team, he couldn't he doesn't have the record he could for his skill.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He doesn't have the results. I'm not questioning his talent. He's a really good player.
Yeah.
But the Joe Root is still getting numbers, but not getting the results. Like despite that pressure of carrying, like but he's not gonna have that win-loss record. He's basically the modern day Brian Lara. Is
Yeah.
that is that an apt comparison? They're both left-handers, small guys.
No, I think that's a really good comparison. Um,
Like sure, he doesn't have those huge innings that Lara has, like those
yeah.
memorable, like the days when you can't get him out because he has the control of the uncertainty. The bowlers don't know what to do, and he
Yeah.
knows exactly when to pull out the pass and when to, and he happily goes rock because he's tricked you into always going for scissors somehow. Like
Somehow.
there's like good batsmen do that.
Yeah, yeah. They make you think that this is what's definitely going to work this time, and they're like,
Yeah.
rock, rock.
Uh, it's like there's a reason why there's so many of the best test performances of all times has like Brian Lara performances in them. Like and Joe Root is similar in that respect, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, but the it's an interesting crossroads for cricket. Like, how long can this low batting error? Like, it's always been like swings and roundabouts. But with analytics, can batsmen swing it back? What? How do you think analytics hasn't really learned how to help batsmen yet?
I guess that's the thing, is that, yeah, I think the analytics very much is on the bowler's side because, as you say, because,
You get so many opportunities and you're entitled to make as many mistakes as your skippers are willing to let you.
yeah, exactly. So I was going to say, like, you don't have to. The batter's got to keep getting lucky. The bowler's only
Yeah,
got to get one lucky once, right?
yeah,
Back to that. So yeah, analytics help because you can look at it and you say it's probabilities. And probabilities are probabilities; they're not actualities. So
yeah,
analytics gives the bowlers all the probabilities. This is the weaker part of the batsman's game. So if I bowl like this, I'm more likely to get them out. So I can keep bowling it there, and eventually I'll get them out because that's true. Uh,
yeah.
so the only thing it helps the batters in is them identifying that part of the game themselves, so they can know what their weakness is and work on it. But I don't think it's not helping the batters at the moment find ways to score more off the bowlers. So until
Yeah.
it gives them the same feedback back about the bowlers as opposed to just about themselves, so uh, then yeah, it's going to be a slight imbalance where it's helping
Hmm.
the bowlers just because of the way cricket works in terms
I
of luck.
we have Yeah, I mean we haven't seen it in white ball cricket. There's a bunch of factors for that. Like until very recently, the Kookaburra white ball was like shit.
Yeah,
Like
it's pants.
let's be fair.
Yeah,
There's a reason why we have to use two of them.
yeah,
I mean, it doesn't last a whole game. It doesn't. It used to reverse swing. It doesn't even do that.
no.
It doesn't move in the air. It's much easier for a batter to play and be sure of what the ball will do and take risks against that. Uh,
I feel like with
like
white ball cricket,
yeah,
there's a lot of been designed just to make it a hit fest, and
that.
the ball
But
is a
this is
big
the
part of it.
Yeah, but the ball has improved now,
Yeah,
and in T20 tournaments are getting lower batting totals now, and the
mm,
averages are starting to come down because bowlers are able to keep the ball from breaking apart and actually still able to do stuff with it, keeping it seam longer. And there's a question around, okay, maybe this is a swings and roundabouts thing. It might improve again for batsmen once they get used to the new ball. And I think
yeah,
that is what's going to happen. But if we get to the situation in white ball cricket where analytics plus an improved white ball, and you've got now the white ball used to be ridiculously difficult to bowl the wobble seam with, but now it's
yeah.
actually doable and doable consistently. So do they change the ball? Like, with all due respect to balance of the game and whatnot, I don't want to watch a. I don't want us to go. Do we want to go back to like ODIs when 200 was a good score?
Yeah, I guess not really. But at the same
I,
time, you want it so the bowlers have
I
something to
think
do.
you
But
want it to be consistently between 250 and 300, right? Sure, your 350 plus games where both sides going 350, they're fun every now and then for a series,
yeah,
but yeah, they don't hop in all the time, and that's fine.
yeah, yeah. I
Like,
think somewhere around you say just over 300 being for lack of a better word, the par or the
yeah,
average that we're aiming at seems good. So that's a decent one. That's 6 runs and over for the whole match, which is
yeah.
not
That's a thing where the
rocketing
batting
out, but
side,
good.
that's a total where the team batting second have to earn it. They don't.
Yeah,
They like a lot of times an under 300 score, the team batting second will just cruise to it
yeah, yeah,
with like 10, 15 balls to spare, and there was never a doubt they have like 6 wickets in hand. They just chilled and got it.
yeah. Well, it's about pressure, right?
Yeah,
I feel like the run a ball level, so that's 300. Under that, you you don't have the pressure. The pressure doesn't really feel because you sort of had that psychological, especially if it's way down under 5 runs or over or less. Like, I can take 2 balls and over. I don't have to score. It's fine. Like, and the rest are just singles, so there's not that
yeah,
scoreboard pressure isn't there. But at over that, like once you get over a run a ball, sure, it's batters can throw that off, but it does. That is the scoreboard pressure, right? Every dot ball is like, I now have to score 2 runs off the next ball. Another dot ball.
yeah,
Now it's 3 runs. I need to get a 4. I need to get a 6 at the end of this over. Like, that's scoreboard pressure. So that's
yeah.
why I think
I think
around 300 seems about right because you get scoreboard pressure, but it's not ridiculous blowouts where teams are just smashing around the bowlers don't do anything. They're just there to toss it up for the batters to see how far out of the ground they can hit it.
yeah. It'll be interesting in the ODI World Cup next year, which will hopefully be able to be played in India,
Mm.
and the T20 World Cup in Australia,
Yeah, yeah,
because those we have some really good batting pitches in those areas, and if given it Australian summer, it should be good to bat on. Fingers
yeah,
crossed, and India should hopefully be good to bat on next year.
yeah,
Fingers crossed. And if we do go to a 250 plus par score, I'm okay with that in a World Cup. 250
yeah, yeah,
plus par score is a that's an interesting World Cup to watch. It's still around. It's 5 to 6 runs and over.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, uh, if it's one of those things where you get out early, then that's when you get under pressure. So you need to stay on and take your time getting in and things like that. That becomes a different type of ODI tournament, but still interesting.
yeah,
If it goes to like okay, getting around between 200 to 240 is a winning score, that's a hard sell for me. Like, sure, happening in an England World Cup where it happens to be swinging, we can accept that, like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that rarely happens, and that was a very rare summer for England. Because leading up to that, like England was averaging the highest for white ball cricket
yeah,
for for like 3 or 4 years. Like England were the best white ball team going into that tournament, and they won it. Like, sure,
yeah,
they
yeah,
won
yeah,
it in a very close game, but they were the best team in the world. Like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and they revolutionized the 50 over game by being like, okay, between overs 10 and 30, we will score about 200 runs. There you go.
yeah.
Like it's one of the sorry, but yeah, sorry, 10 to 35. So that's 25 overs. They were scoring at about 6 runs and over for those 30 overs between 10 and 50. So they scored about 180 to 200 runs in that time. Traditionally, people would go at about 4, give or take, and then
Give or
how
take, yeah,
ballistic you went in the end.
yeah, yeah. It really
And
end loaded it.
yeah,
Previously, we were like, well, you get to 30
they
overs and it
still
doesn't just
end
score from
loaded,
there.
by the way. They
Oh
didn't
no, it's
like
still, yeah,
they still like scored. This is why they hit massive scores and so
yeah, yeah.
consistently hit massive scores.
Well, it's
Uh,
good because you get a higher base to spring off. So if you
yeah,
aim at that 180, 200 over that period, when you do launch, you're starting higher anyway, so you're there. But even if you launch and miss, you're still going to get a decent score. Like you're going
like
to get a pretty high score anyway.
Yeah, I mean, even like the number of times I saw England in that period get to 300 at the 50 over mark, at the 40 over mark, sorry, and then get like another 80, 90 runs. You'd think it's underperforming because they only scored 9 runs and over in the last 10 overs after having such a good start, but
Yeah,
they'd done so much work, like at that point, and like getting 400 plus was really common. Whereas I think at that same period, India were doing the same thing, but they were for some reason always trying to get around 300 and trying
yeah,
to like they were the second best team in
yeah,
the
yeah,
world at that point, and they just like I don't know. The strategy for me never made sense when you have a team that talented. Like in India's team were good enough to score 350 every game if they wanted to,
yeah,
and they didn't. They chose to stay under around 300 to 320. It's like, okay.
yeah. Bit weird, but
Yeah, yeah. So it's it's an interesting crossroads for cricket. As for batsmen, yeah, I think there's gonna be a whole thing, right? We're gonna have to see how techniques are developed,
yeah,
and it might just change that people just go, okay, maybe we need to make our pitches a bit better for batting. And like analytics will be analytics, and the wobble ball will be the wobble ball. People will eventually get used to it. Like, back in the day, we thought reverse swing was unplayable,
yeah.
but now we're, not okay. Not me personally. You'll still beat, you'll still get me out with reverse swing.
To be fair,
But
you can get me out without swing. You just bowl it straight, and I'll get out. So
yeah, like full toss, slow full toss will get me every time. Like,
just got to be on middle stump, right? Or any of the three stumps, really.
yeah,
I always loved that when I was playing cricket, especially in the later years. Like the bowlers trying to be all international, line length outside that, and getting upset with me. And like I'm just like, as soon as they bowl at the stumps, it's over. Like I'm head to bowl, man. Like I'm not a batter. Stop trying to pretend that I'm gonna nick it through to your slips or something. Like just bowl at the stumps.
yeah. I had the like there's like this spell Simon Dewell was bowling to Glenn McGrath, and Glenn McGrath actually went up to us and said, "These are too good for me. Like
Yeah.
you don't need to bowl this well to get me out. I'm not that good a player."
Yeah.
Because he was like bowling in swing, just missing the outside, and then outswing, and he was just like, "Bro, like incredible. Like I appreciate the craftsmanship because I'm a bowler, but yeah, no,
But really, just bowl it straight.
yeah." And then he got out to a straight one. It's like, yep, yep.
Yeah. Point proven.
I think I told you before, right? Like baseball had a similar thing with pitchers were just being too dominant on batters
Yeah, I think it's been
with
mentioned
with
before. Yeah.
analytics. Because
Yeah.
baseball's gotten to the point where, because baseball is basically all just death bowling, right? It's 9 innings of death bowling
Yeah.
to a batsman. Um, so they just and it's basically gotten to the point where apparently like 90% of the time it's like you're either struck out or you hit a home run. Like, there's very little base running and things like that because it's like the analytics and the efficiency doesn't work out.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just realized because I was trying to think about, oh yeah, maybe turn-based games are always about probability and real-time strategy games are always about space. And I was like, no, some turn-based games are about space, like rugby league, NFL. They
Yeah.
are about space. Some games are just only about like every game is a certain degree of probability when you're playing with other players, like when it's a competitive versus competition. But there's some games where it is like for example the NFL rugby league is really about progressing the ball further, gaining the yardage. That is actually how you play the game. Space and everything come into it, and you are playing, controlling your space. Whoever controls their space wins, like you do with most football sports.
Yeah.
But it's still about progressing the ball and moving forward and like generating numbers.
Yeah.
Whereas like soccer, especially because I don't know how how much analytics is done with hockey, but the idea is you want to be able to always put somebody in a position where they have a high probability of scoring,
Yes.
and the more often you do that in a game, the more goals you'll score.
Yeah.
And
I
the
mean,
better you are at keeping the other team from doing that, the less goals you'll concede.
yeah. I mean, hockey is about that, but I mean, at my level,
Yeah.
there's no analytics into it. I'm sure it's international level. There's a bit more put into it, but it's still what we're talking about, like the high
Yeah.
percentage passes, uh, making sure that the runs you're making are into high percentage places. Like you need to be in a place where you can get the ball and
Yeah.
do something with it, as you say
Yeah.
about uh, how do you move the ball around so that you can get to the guy in the circle who
Yeah, and
has a
like
good shot.
progressing the ball and that
Yeah.
idea that doesn't die in football, of course, but
No, no.
it's like because it's a real-time strategy game, probability is more
Yeah.
important, like
Well,
understanding what the probability is at that time, like at a
yeah, yeah.
particular
I
time.
think that's
Because
what we talk
like
about more as well, even at our level hockey. Like we're talking about not making dumb passes. So
yeah,
there's nothing wrong with, and football does this, right? That's the back pass. There's nothing wrong with the back pass because you keep possession, and the opposition can't score if you've got the ball. So to me, that's the probability. It's like, what is the probability that the pass I'm wanting to make forward is going to get to the person and they're going to be able
yeah,
to do something with it. They're not going to be immediately put under pressure. Like they'll have the time and
yeah,
space to do something with it. So I mean, that's progressing the ball, but it's about I've got options, which is what is the highest probability option here to ensure
yeah,
that we keep the ball first and foremost, and then also that we are able to progress towards our objective of scoring the goal. And so
yeah,
yeah, sometimes if that's the back pass, and that's the hardest thing at our level of hockey is getting people to realise actually sometimes the back pass is the best option. It's not about progressing the ball because sure the goal's that direction, but so's their entire team. So
yeah.
let's move the
Like
ball to the other side of the field and see if we got something there. If not, move it back. It's just that
yeah, yeah.
transition's got to be quick because people can move across.
I
And
think
in
so
hockey, you don't
you
have the
tend
three
to keep
dimensions as much.
yeah, and I think keeping possession in hockey is a bit like you tend to hold on to playing possession rather than counterattack is generally more rewarding in hockey.
Yeah,
Whereas football almost becomes like, the counterattack is the great equalizer, right? Like,
yeah,
even a team of Sunday League players can go, okay, we're going to go low bar and counter,
yeah,
can beat like the best team in the world and that on their day.
yeah, yeah.
Because that tactic is just nullifies like, all that
And in hockey, you
ability.
could get the counter attack going if you want because you got no offside, so you can have a very high seagull and you can move the ball very quickly. And it's about move. If you can move the ball quickly, counter attack can work. You have someone
Yeah.
high, and as long if the opposition's not going to hold people back, and they can, but if they don't, then being able to quickly move it to them um, gives you
Yeah.
that's really effective. The problem is that it can be easily shut down but it means the opposition just doesn't commit as many numbers forward, which is good for you as well because then less
Easier
numbers
to
forward. So
counter on a natural pitch versus an artificial pitch.
no,
Because
no,
apparently,
artificial should be much easier to counter because the ball
because of
moves
the
much
quick
faster.
passing.
Yeah,
Right, because I think like before artificial pitches became a thing, like most of the time the Olympics were won by either Pakistan or India,
yeah.
and like one of their things is they said like dribbling is easier on a grass pitch, and like passing's easier on an artificial pitch.
Well, I think the thing is that the ball moves fast. Passing on artificial, the ball moves faster than passing on grass,
Yeah,
and I think dribbling's about the same on both, except
yeah,
that tackling's easier on a defense is easier on an artificial because the ball runs smooth and you just got to
right,
get your stick down low and the stick's long, right? So
yeah,
therefore your defensive area on an artificial is quite wide because you can
yeah,
trust the ball to stay on the ground. So you get your
yeah,
stick flat on the ground and out as far as you can reach while keeping on the ground. That's your arc. Like anything in that
right,
zone you can defend, which makes it a much you have
yeah,
as hockey, like you've got to as an attacker, you've got to drag it a lot wider to get around that.
yeah,
Plus in grass, you've got to be defending your stick upright more because the ball bounces. So it will just they can just run it. You can have your stick flat in the ground and the guy can just run straight at you and it will go through you because the ball bounces. So you've got to be
Right.
more upright. So there's less. You've got to be more mobile. So people can dribble and change direction quicker and closer to you, and you can't defend it. So that's where dribbling comes better, because the defenders don't have as big an advantage. Whilst on turf, the defenders, it's as far as you can reach. If the defender can reach their stick out there, they can probably stop you getting past, especially at higher levels. My level, you've got the whole, maybe they're not good enough, but still, you don't go on their forehand side. If you're going to drag around, you go around there. Either you go wide around their forehand, or
Yeah.
you run around their backhand, because obviously that's harder to get around and
Yeah.
down, and people are less adept that side. But at
Yeah.
international level, like, that makes no difference. Like, if you've got it within their reach of their stick, they're going to take the ball off you. So you've got to pass it around them, because you're not going to be able to dribble around them, because that's too big an area for each defender. So a defender for running can block it up a lot easier. So I think that's the bigger difference in dribbling. Like, it's not, the dribbling itself is no different, but
The
the
strategy
defense,
and tactics around it are
yeah,
different.
are very different. Like, that serves a different purpose. But still, if you can be dribbling through players, as in, you're not dribbling at a set player, but you've run onto the ball and the defender's running with you, then dribbling is going to be a lot more effective, because they're not set, so they're not going to be able to get to you. You can get around them into position. So a counter from that point works, but that still requires flat, horizontal ball, square balls out, and then long, deep, hard balls for a striker running onto it, who then can dribble around whatever defenders are left up with them to get into shooting position. Um,
Interesting.
but still,
But
like, the modern game is the ball can move faster than you, so passing is always better than dribbling. Because the ball's wherever you want
yeah.
the ball to be, you can pass the ball there faster than you can get there. And if you run
Yeah.
there, the defender probably is going to run as fast as you to get there, but they can't run as fast as the ball. So if you can pass it to someone, that's 100 times better, because whoever's defending near you is not going to be now where the ball is, so they're useless. Because,
Yeah.
you're over here with me, like, there's my guy with the ball at the top of the circle.
Is
You
there
can't go
less of
next
a
to it.
first is there less of a first touch thing in foot like there is with football, where like getting an accurate fast pass is it's very rare for you to get a bad first touch with a hockey stick if you've been playing for very long, as opposed to like in football, bad first touch. You see it even in the top professional
Yeah,
players.
yeah, no, yeah, I think in hockey definitely you can definitely train yourself to always get a good first touch. I mean, sometimes it goes horribly wrong, but normally that's technique. With good technique, yeah, you the ball sticks to your stick.
And
You
passing's always going to be your goal, right? Because
Yeah,
it's the bad first pass that makes occasionally, like, that's where, like, it's if you always have a really good first touch, even like someone like John Terry becomes like this incredible attacking weapon from the back.
yeah,
Like, just immediately starts the counter and, like.
and definitely, the higher you get, that's exactly what's happening, right? This is the fullbacks hard out to the halves out
Mm,
wide, and they're immediately as hard. Like, in hockey, we try to train no more than 3 touches. You should a trap, a touch to get into position, pass. That's the maximum you should be touching it, unless because you're actually going for a dribble, because you're up front and that's the play. But you've got to. That comes back to percentage play, right? What is the percentage play? Is the dribble the percentage play? Am I in the position where this is working? I am past the last defender and I'm running in on goal, or I know I've got the good matchup here and this guy I can beat, so I'm going to beat him,
yeah.
and that gets me into space to then make the pass for the next play. But ideally, you don't need more than 3 touches of the ball when in any play. One's to trap it, get it under control, move it into the position, into a forward position, the direction that you want to then next pass it, so the ball's traveling around, and then a nice hard pass to where the next person's getting it from, and that should be. You take that middle one so that you can get the ball in position, so that the pass to the person is going to be hard and accurate and setting them up for success. Because you want that ball to be, where they're running to in front of them, so they can pick it up and do the same thing. So they're not having to stop, drag it back around and waste time. It's in the place they want it, they're running onto it, for momentum, take the ball and able to do the same thing. The first touch is going to be good, second touch to get into next place, and then a pass off to whoever's getting it next.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to international level, and you're probably cutting that down to 2 because the first touch, the pass is so good that the first touch does the first and second touch for you, because you get it in such a good position that you don't need to then take a touch to get it into the good position next, because you just bring it with you. But yeah, the idea is to keep those touches down to a minimum because you want the ball to be doing all the work.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's why ice hockey's similar. Like that first touch is is what makes the difference. Because it's similar in ice hockey, right? Because it's a very smooth surface. The puck will always go faster than you, and the same things you just explained about passing. And yeah, it's interesting that because like in football at the moment, according to all the hipster football bloggers I follow, the way they play, and it's catching on around the world. In Portugal, the idea they've got is in football is played in 4 phases. So you've got attack, transition, you've got with the ball, without the ball.
Yeah.
And then you've got transition to attack and transition to defense.
Yeah.
So when you've lost the ball and you need to go into attack, that transition phase, and then you're in the defensive shape, you're off the ball shape, and then you've got we've just got the ball, and then your transition to offensive phase and then offensive phase. And because most teams don't think about those transition phases, you get a lot of out of shape. But if you keep training those transition phases, which is what Manchester City do, which is why they know how to get into those positions, like, oh, this guy's got the ball off you, our teammates lost the ball. We immediately know how to get into the transition defensive phase to get into the defensive shape.
Yeah.
With this particular situation, if we lose the ball in this part of the court, of the field.
Yeah.
And I just find that really interesting. Like, obviously, I'm only looking at it from a soccer perspective because that's the sport I follow. But it almost feels like a lot of times, Guardiola really is playing 5D chess when playing against other managers.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that analysis works for just about any
But to like actually train your team,
sport.
like every team for your team to actually train those particular phases as a team differently. Like I find that as a really interesting idea.
Really
Like
interesting.
okay, like we do drills where you've just recovered and your team's in this shape because this is your attack shape. How do you change into the transition phase to transition to defense, and then what defensive shape are you going to take depending on where he's going? You know?
Yeah. No, it is interesting to train that a lot. That's actually really interesting, and actually have plans around that. And this is how we're transitioning from one phase to another. There was actually a TIFO YouTube.
Yeah. This
Video
is
on
where
it.
I was watching it from in Tifo, because
Oh
Tifo
yeah.
are the football hipsters I watch.
Yeah, that's the yeah. So I liked they had talking about TIFO. They had the just recently they had one out about what we talk about, whether points, games at hand, or points on the board are better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that too.
Like
Like,
they basically came to the conclusion we did, but then all had a big. But it depends, because in reality it doesn't seem to go out like that, and even teams with massive amounts of games in hand still tend to do well enough out of it.
yeah. Because that's one of the things, like, you know what you have to do, right? It's like
Yeah.
batting second in a T20, in a way.
Yeah.
In a way.
Sure, it takes a lot out of them, but as I say, they know what they need to do, and
Yeah.
it's in front of them. Like, this is, we need to do this, 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 and this. They can, like, it's going to be hard. And I guess that's how things. Everybody goes into it knowing this is going to be physically tough because we're going to play a lot of games. But you know, as long as we get on the right foot, then it's going to snap together, and you don't lose any momentum. Like, you're just playing so often that you just play. There's you just keep rolling from one game to the next, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do
It's
find
just
it
the
interesting
energy
that
levels and the potential injuries that are the issues.
yeah, that is the issue. So it appears that most teams that did have such a large games in hand, that never really seemed to work, and they all seemed to get a reasonable amount of points out of it all. Like they all
Hmm.
got just about all the points that were on offer, and you know,
It's when you have to win all the games in hand that there's too
I
much
think,
pressure.
yeah, I think that would make a difference. And the analysis Tifo had didn't go into that, and I think some of the YouTube comments point out that it didn't go into um, points above expected. Like, what was there out of those games? What could they have reasonably expected to get based on the teams they had to play? What was their expected points, and how many points did they get compared to their expected points? Because it's a difference if it's they'll point out with Burnley, who's like 6 games in hand, whatever they are. Um, if they've got to play the top 6, that's different than if they're playing the other, 6 of the other bottom 7 or the bottom 8. Sort of like there's a big difference of what they should, what is the expected outcome out of those two different scenarios. So what is their expected points haul versus what do they actually get? And that's a better analysis to have to look at whether points in hand is better than games. Well, points in the bag is better than games in the hand.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting to look at that sort of analysis because this is like I said, like my idea about cricket with the whole. It's actually played on a complete actual probabilities. Like if you break it down to it, it is literally like it is very much a very advanced form of rock paper scissors that
Well,
the
especially at
batsman
the
and
moment,
bowler,
yeah.
yeah,
With they
the
say with the
batsman
analytics and everything.
batsman and bowler plays, and it's like over however many games.
Mm.
Um, and the it's interesting that in the cricket info they actually count how many percentage of your shots are controlled.
Yeah,
And like this is like that game from like Bangladesh versus New Zealand. I'm just looking like Monimal Hawk scored 88 runs and he had like an 88% controlled shots
yeah.
versus like Devon Conway had like 122 runs at 85%. I think that's the thing. Like when a batsman can get to above 80 in their controlled shots, that's when they're on top.
Yeah.
Like that's obvious they're gonna put out a good performance when they're playing.
Well, I think that's a phenomenally high thing because as a batter, you're always going to get balls that you can't play, or
But if you
that's the
can
thing.
leave a ball comfortably, that's a controlled shot,
I
right?
know
If you
that's a
can,
controlled shot too, but I mean, no matter how well you're leaving and seeing the ball and playing, getting the right decisions, there's always going to be one that's just at the right length, moving just the amount that
the,
always going to have to do something to it. And
you don't want to waste deliveries. I think as a
yeah,
bowler, because the more balls that a bowler as a batsman can leave comfortably,
yeah,
the more they understand what balls they can leave comfortably.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, is that what I mean? It becomes a virtuous cycle for a batsman. The more they're comfortably leaving deliveries, like a leave is such a confident shot. Like
yeah,
it's almost in many ways one of the most psychologically attacking shots in a test match. Like if you can happily leave, like the more effortless your leave is, the more demoralizing it is for a bowler.
yeah,
Because you're now learning more and more about the pitch. Where is it? What's it like? And the more how you gonna have to adapt your tactics for that game. Which shots in your arsenal are you gonna play? Is this a no rock pitch? You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, is
yeah,
this
yeah.
a no scissors pitch? And
I think also you're getting more used to the pitch, which also means where that which ones you're leaving, you're getting more comfortable at exactly where that's sailing through. So then you can
obviously you're
start
getting
looking to play at those ones because you know exactly what that ball's doing. So if you know if a pitch is there and it's coming through at this height, especially as the
yeah
ball gets older, you're like, well, I can actually hit that ball. I know where it's going to be. Like it's no longer an uncertainty, right? It's now a certainty. You know what's happening. So you can start thinking, what can I play here? And so you start
yeah
having paper beats their rock. You're like, well, that's the rock ball, right? Well, I get to play paper now.
Yeah, and like I think it also takes a lot of like a batsman in a test match has to be very much I could have scored. I could have cashed in on that ball and like be like, okay, there'll be another ball.
Yeah.
I'm leaving so well that they're gonna make a mistake. Like they're not generating enough uncertainty. Whereas if you were getting I can't leave anything. I have to keep blocking, and you get into a because you get into a thing of a block like uh like if you're comfortably blocking, it's fine. Like like yeah, okay, this is gonna hit the stumps, I'm gonna block. But
Yeah.
there's blocks and there's blocks. Like I attempted to block and I missed, and I attempted to block. A missed block is an incredibly moralizing ball. Like it's incredibly demoralizing for a batsman. It almost makes the next few shots uncertain.
Yeah. Because the basically the ball did something more than you thought it was going to, or something different to it. It decreases your certainty in what's happening.
It makes it you more likely to play a shot, make a mistake, like play a shot that you could have left.
Yeah.
And you're not going to score off. Like it's one of those things they also said in that game. Like all those shots which they got out to with balls that they could have left, they weren't attacking shots. They weren't scoring off those balls. They were trying to block them.
Yeah.
So getting out blocking to a ball that's going to hit your stumps, whatever. Like that happens. Bowler's gotten you, tip your hat, walk in.
Well,
that's
always
not
look at it. Yeah. At some point, the bowler's going to bowl the perfect ball to you. If they bowl enough balls at you, one of them's going to be so good that you just have to go, well, that was the ball today, or this test match. It may have come 400 balls into your innings, if you're lucky, or maybe not, but still, it's there. You just don't want to be gifting them that ball.
Yeah, you played the right shot to that ball and you couldn't get it. Like that happens, and and I think, but it looks worse to leave and get out bowled.
Yeah.
And I think, like no batsman, because that has real questions on your technique, and I understand that. Like it's. Like unless it's like an incredible ball, you thought you could leave because it was on leg stump and hit your off bail. Okay, like those are balls that are balls. Like those are like that's ball of the century level stuff. Nobody's gonna hold you for those. But or if you're gonna so if you're getting out leaving to a ball that you've just misjudged, it's not doing particularly much. That's or like bowled around your legs. That's always gonna like that's. It almost feels like those are like wickets you've given to the bowler, like that ball that Rory Burns got out to Stark. Like Stark just bowled bowled like outside leg stump and it swung in, despite what Shane Warne said that it was a straight one. But even then, that was not a ball that you should have gotten out to first. Like you should be able to cover that on your leg stump.
Yeah.
Especially as an opener, like that's a ball.
Exactly.
That's a ball that you should have easily been able to block or leave, or at least get something on. Like
Yeah.
Sure, LBW would be in because we live in the. That's the other thing, right? LBWs because of DRS.
Oh yeah.
And umpires are now more confident about giving. Like apparently umpires get 96% of their decisions right now.
Yeah.
So
No,
umpiring is really accurate, and they're very good at what they do. And they are not afraid to give you out if they think you're out.
Yeah.
Because DRS will. They don't want to look at a DRS and be like, oh, that could have been a wicket. Yeah, they go, oh yeah, that's probably out.
Yeah. And you're right. They're right ball times are not.
Yeah.
Normally, where it's like, oh, that was close. Yeah, it was.
Like especially for spinners, like spinners are getting way more LBWs than they used to. Like as a percentage of the LBWs, because it used to be heavily weighted in favor of pace bowlers.
Yeah.
Whereas now they spinners are getting their fair share of LBW dismissals.
Yeah.
And that's the slight improvement we've seen in the how spinners are doing against batters because they are slightly better.
Yeah, yeah,
Part of that is also because batters are under pressure from pace bowlers, so spinners are occasionally the ones who get the wicket for that.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Because yeah,
but they're not ridiculously more successful. It's the pace bowlers who are the ridiculously more successful.
yeah, yeah,
Um, And like, it's also the other things, like, the fact that people just go and start bowling around the wicket to left arm batsmen now. They don't even start with over the wicket.
all right.
Like, if you know how to bowl around the wicket, you'll meet, like, Tim Southee did that to Dean Elgar right off the bat against South Africa. Like, he
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
get him out. Like, Matt Henry ended up getting him out, but like, he immediately just went yep, I'm going to bowl around the wicket too. Like, most lefties these days just don't know how to deal with it.
yeah,
They're used to over the wicket. Over the wicket is the default. At least growing up into your thing, like most people, you'll play in the thing. Like, sure, it'll swing out again, and lefties will be comfortable against both. I've heard like Jared Kimber talked about it. Like left arm cricketers, most of them are not as good as right arm cricketers. They just get away with being left-handed.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
Like Wazim Akram is an incredible talent. Brian Lara is an incredible talent. We're not talking about those players.
No,
Like
just
we're talking about like what's it, the guy who's the Pakistani bowler who's like, he's just left-handed and he's really tall and he can bowl straight. Like he doesn't even bowl swing, he just bowls straight, gets the bounce and he's really tall. But he's left-handed, so if at he's not even that fast. He's like literally like I think 80 miles an hour. So, 120 odd, but because he's left-handed and tall, it's okay.
yeah, yeah. Like
So, he still has a test career, whereas like other bowlers would, if he was right-handed, you wouldn't even look at him. Like, okay, it's nice. Would you even get into a first-class team? Like, even though you're tall? Like Kyle Jamison's bowling wasn't good enough initially for him to get into first-class teams. He had to bat, right?
yeah, yeah,
And like he had to develop that bowling ability.
yeah, exactly. And even then, he had to wasn't he a spin bowler to begin with or something silly like that as well?
And yeah, I mean, he's tall, so it would have worked either way. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
part of me wishes he did keep to the spin bowling just so that he could have a longer career. Because, 8 times your body weight on your front foot when you bowl pace.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Maybe, and like that's got to do with like, and if he can also keep his batting going, he's gonna be, yeah, he could arguably end up becoming one of our best all-rounders. I mean, I still have John Reid in my all-time New Zealand cricket team, but that's just because, he bowls like 30 overs a game. And he bowls off spin and like, right arm medium pace and swing. And
Yeah, yeah,
started off as a wicket keeper. Like a good wicket keeper, but had to develop all these other skills too. Like in my all-time team, I'd just be like, bro, just do off spin. If you feel like bowling mediums, we'll let you, yeah, if the pitch, but yeah, just focus on your off spin. We've got a left arm spinner, either Ijaz or Dan. It's fine. You'll get
fine.
wickets.
Yeah,
It's ball accurate off spin, I'm sure. And he's a tall guy, right? John Reid was like really tall.
yeah, yeah. Pretty sure he was at least reasonably
Like
tall.
apparently, like he got into he was in Hutt Valley Boys high school, and he got into the cricket team when he was in third form, which no surprise,
Yeah,
like first 11, and he was taller than everyone in the team.
yeah,
Like, that guy who like goes to school, he's taller than the guys in the cricket team. You're gonna be like, this guy's playing sport. Like all the teams are like, you play for us, right?
yeah, yeah. Can play us, please.
I'm sure he must have been a good rugby player too, given he's an all rounder.
Yeah, one would imagine.
New Zealand's not had a bad run of having decent all-rounders, I think. I mean, what? There's
Yeah,
John Reid, and then we had Richard Collins, and then we had obviously Richard Hadley,
yeah.
and then we had Chris Cairns.
Mm-hmm.
We can argue about his legacy all we want. The good performances are the good performances. There are definitely many match-winning performances from Chris Cairns
Yeah, exactly.
in his time. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not justifying any of the shit he's done, but I'm just talking about the body of work.
yeah. If we talk purely about his performances on the field, then yeah, you can't argue with
And,
that.
yeah, and then obviously there's Daniel Vittori,
Yeah,
Jacob Oram, and I guess maybe now the current team has Carl Jamieson.
yeah,
Even though he's not picked as an all-rounder, he
yeah.
could probably
I think
become an all-rounder.
yeah. I mean, they're not picking him as an all-rounder at the moment. I think more just to let him settle into the team. Though it's been it's been a year or so now, but still, was sort of the not wanting to add that extra pressure onto him. So the team against South Africa, I would almost argue, was almost full of almost all-rounders, given that we pretty much battered down to 11. We
I
got
mean,
yeah,
like Neil Wagner got a 49 in that game.
yeah, yeah. Waking up. I mean, I think Salby was the only one that didn't really score any runs, and he was looking
Carl
like the bunny
Jamieson
for a
is
change. So Matt Henry got a 58 as well.
50. Sorry, he got a 50 where?
Matt Henry got a 58. He was 58 not
Yeah,
out
yeah,
of
yeah. Matt
68.
Henry got a good 50. He got 2-6. He had 2-6s, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, even Kyle Jameson only got 15, but it was off 19 balls, which is pretty
Yeah,
good.
he was. Matt Henry had a really good innings. He
Yeah.
upped the strike rate really well.
Yeah. Well, so
And
did Neil
that's what
Wagner.
changed the momentum of that second innings. It all looked like South Africa could have made a comeback, I
Yeah.
think, until Matt Henry came in.
Well, I think Matt Henry's that quick fire, say 58, it really just
Sorry, not Matt
sapped the
Henry.
morale.
Henry Nichols is what I meant to say. Henry
Henry,
Nichols' innings.
well,
That was a
Henry
match.
just, yeah, that was definitely a match-winning performance. That thanks. Wagner's that morning, the second morning, just sort of quick fire for nearly 50, 49, got out going for his 50. Really set the tone. But Matt Henry's 58 at the end, I think, was like the any remaining morale that South Africa might have had just got sapped away when the number 11 comes out, just slaps a 50 and just really accelerates the score off. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, him and Blundell nearly put on a 100-run partnership for the 10th wicket. Southey got out at 388 and Blundell got out at 482. So
Tom
like,
Blundell played a really good innings as well.
oh, he did as well. He deserved 100. That's a bit sad. He didn't quite make it, but
That's alright. They all count. Doesn't
they all count.
matter. 90s
Well,
are good as hundreds.
that was the funny thing. I was listening to the ACC since they're on Spark Sport now, and they
Yeah.
were making the good joke of just they'd been talking about Wagner earlier, like, oh, it's nearly his 50. Should he play it safe and like just play for the 50, or just play what he's been doing and have a walk? And then he had the walk, got out. Then Nichols was getting close to 100, like, oh, okay, he has to play real safe, like things. And then they were like, but this is just to get to some arbitrary number that's slightly higher than their current number that apparently counts for stats. But 97, 98 is only like 3 runs less than the 100. Like, it's really just as good a score.
When
I
you've
mean, the
got
same
80
score.
plus,
But
you've put in a good performance for your team. Like
yeah, I mean, the
that's
only
like
thing
good as
100
most
does,
centuries.
is put that extra little stat down on your stat
Yeah,
sheet. Just you move a column across and put a 1 there, an +1 on that next column.
yeah. And until you get like 150 plus, then you've done something incredible. You've got a
Yeah,
big
yeah,
100.
yeah.
Like so Carl Jamieson's got 62 wickets, strike rate of 41.
That is crazy.
Like it's incredible how good he is, and like his batting, it's okay, 25. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got
Given
a
that he's
higher He's got a higher batting average than his bowling.
I mean, yeah, he has been picked for his bowling, so that's a pretty decent batting record for when you're not actually being picked for your batting.
Yeah, and his
I know he
first
is
class
actually an all-rounder, so
record is okay batting wise, 19. So he's not a
yeah,
gun batter in first class level either.
no,
Um, he's got talent though. He could probably develop a decent game. Like somebody, he could be a good number 7 batsman.
mm,
Like I wouldn't bat him at 6. I
no,
wouldn't.
no,
I wouldn't feel comfortable batting him higher than 7. But yeah, 7, 8, incredible. If we get you know, Colin de Grandhomme at 6 is fine.
mm,
Because there's nobody else, right? There's nobody like if Kane Williamson comes back, then maybe we have a thing about who do we want at number 6? Because I think Will Young has earned his right to open and get
yeah,
an extended try at that position.
yeah,
I think Devon Conway is slots into number 4, like the run machine role.
yeah, yeah,
I think Henry Nichols has shown that he's a good player of like fast bowling as well, and he can place the second new ball pretty well and bat with tail enders. So Henry
yeah.
Nichols at number 5, I'm very comfortable with. Um, yeah, and Kane is going in at 6, and yeah, sorry, Kane is going in at 3.
Three, yeah.
So who are
Number.
we missing?
Well,
Because
there's
Kane Williamson's come in to the side. Who are we
so
missing from our
we got
starting?
Blundell, I guess, is what you're missing there, the keeper at 6.
No, no, but Blundell played in that game. Who are we dropping from our team to
Um,
bring Kane in if Kane is
one,
playing?
two, three, four. Well, that's where you're up to. No, Blundell was at 6, but Wagner was night watchman, so he
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
bumped up. So
But aren't we?
Blundell's was at 6.
Yeah, but
So
who
you've got the
didn't
6.
Conway batted 3 in the last game, right? And
Yeah.
Nichols batted
Oh,
4.
Mitchell. You're dropping Mitchell.
I'm dropping Mitchell. That's right, Daryl
Yeah.
Mitchell. Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, Daryl Mitchell. Maybe give him a go at some 6. Daryl Mitchell,
Yeah.
or do you prefer Daryl Mitchell or do you prefer Colin de Grandhomme at 6?
I guess the question is how much bowling do you want that person to
We
do?
have 4 good bowlers, right?
Yeah. So Colin de Grandhomme's in if you want to have someone who can bowl more overs. Not that Darryl Mitchell can't bowl that many overs, but if you're thinking like need a reasonable bowler, a better bowler than a batter, relatively speaking, then I would go de Grandhomme. But if we're going actually we need the batting nous, then maybe Mitchell's worth an extended run to see whether he can perform that role better than de Grandhomme can. But
Should they've given Rachin Ravindra more of a chance? I mean, his
obviously
bowling's
another
never going
option.
to be more than a part-timer, I think.
Well, same
I
with
think,
Mitchell.
yeah.
Maybe between those three, it's probably worth giving someone an extended go. And you've still got Satner there as well.
I think Satner is still good. I wouldn't
Yeah,
mind giving him more of a go. I also think each Sodi is worth giving a go to if they want to develop But if we're going to develop a test spinner, I just think, why? Just get Ajaz Patel.
yeah. I guess in that place, then you need Jameson or Southey to up their batting game a bit. If you're
Yeah.
putting
Ajaz
yeah,
Patel
Ajaz
is
or
okay as a batter. He's not going to bat higher than number 11, right? So he's fine as a number 11 batter.
yeah.
Like,
Well, that's
there's
what I
no.
mean. You've got to if you're putting him in, then you're assuming you're keeping the Jameson Southey Bolt slash Henry thing going and Wagner thing going. But if you're going to replace one of them with the spinner, then that's a different story.
I would always keep the 4 of them. I think
Yeah,
our batting is strong enough that we can drop,
the
quote
Grandhomme.
unquote, our number
Well,
6, yeah, for an actual spin bowler because
yeah,
Blundell's batting 6, right? And that's
yeah, and
fine.
that
Blundell's a good number 6.
yeah, no, yeah. If you're dropping the all-round slot for a specialist spinner, then yeah, Blundell bat 6. Um, but I mean, he is batting above de Grandhomme this game anyway, so
Yeah, I wouldn't I wouldn't drop a one of the 4 lions for a spinner. I think that core 4 are so good.
I think you're right. The position up for grabs is the quote unquote all rounder slot. Just there's lots of people that can slot into there that balance the team one way or the other. So that's where DeGront home is at the moment. Whether we slot Mitchell into there, DeGront home, Ravinder, Sodhi, Patel, or Satner, depending on exactly what balance you want to have.
Yeah.
And all of them can bowl a bit, right? So they can
Yeah.
do that. What you're talking about is you need to bowl 15 maybe 20 overs a game in 5 over slots as the hold up an end to give the four main bowlers a bit of a rest.
Yeah.
Slash if it's
I
Patel or Sodhi, then maybe you'd be in the attacking spinner as well.
Yeah, I think Aegis Patel could basically attack in that condition. Like he could genuinely get a lot of wickets, even in New Zealand conditions,
Oh
because
yeah,
his first class record is still decent, 31. Sure, if he averages 27-ish away and 30-ish at home, he still averages under 30. That's really good for a spin bowler in this era. He wouldn't play in all games. I don't think you'd play him in that Hagley Oval pitch that we just had.
yeah,
But you could play him in pitches like the Mount. I think what's Queenstown is getting to be like that as well,
yeah.
like a spin bowling pitch because you get a lot of sun in Otago.
Eden
And
Park and Hamilton's, I think, reasonably spin friendly.
yeah, I mean, there's no out and out spin friendly, and they
No,
have said that that's a like Gary Stead has said they see that as a problem. They want to grow good spinners to win overseas, and
yeah.
get that in. But yeah, that'll be interesting. I didn't know Jeet Patel went to school in Avondale College.
Oh, I didn't know that too.
Ajas Patel went to Avondale College,
AJ's, yeah.
and my dad used to, because he came to coach Avondale College as well, and my dad was teaching that team he was coaching.
All right, still pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's like because what's his name? My dad also knew Martin Guptill. Martin Guptill played for Suburbs when my brother and them used to play it for Suburbs.
All right, yeah.
They were like, he's this little kid who was still really good at batting, like, very clever. And yeah, he ended up becoming a black cap, so obviously.
Yes, yes, he was really good at batting.
Yeah. But yeah, he was younger than them. And when you're like a 12-year-old and an 11-year-old is like the scrawny kid, you're like, I'm gonna get him out. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
especially if you're like, because a bunch of my friends who are like between me and my brother's age played with him as well. So they're like 14-year-olds. So they're like, 11-year-old, we're gonna like smash you. But oh no, can bat.
yeah. That's how that goes.
I might actually write a paper on my idea of cricket being played completely on a probability axis.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
Like, I think it's I just have to work it out a bit more.
yeah. Especially
and
out of
like
it, and yeah,
and like because of the nature of it, because it's a turn-based game and blah blah blah, and what makes it like this.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all we have time for today. I think that was a really interesting discussion. It went a bit deeper than I anticipated about the cricket.
Yeah, well, it is cricket for us, so But I think I'm happy to take that into Discord as well. So maybe if people want to post their comments there, thoughts, we can dwell further into that even more so.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to hear what people think about how they view our beautiful summer game.
Yeah, and saying whether analytics are too bowler centric, whether that's a good thing, given that it was very batter centric for a while there. Like, is there a happy medium we could come to?
Or is it always just going to be swings and roundabouts? And
Yeah,
that's also fine, I think
yeah,
it's a fine position to have and be happy with that it's swings and roundabouts.
yeah. Well, exactly.
But yeah, we'll love to hear from you, and we hope you all stay well, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next time.
Catch you next time.